The footsteps of the man in the black suit echoed across the schoolyard, deliberate and unyielding. Every student's gaze followed him, hearts pounding in their chests. Aram felt a cold shiver run down his spine, his hands clutching the edges of his desk as if the red lunchbox could somehow shield him from what was coming. His father, Imran, remained calm, his stance firm, yet Aram could see the tension flicker in the lines of his jaw, the slight tightening of his eyes. This wasn't just a parent-teacher moment. Something else was at play. The principal, Mr. Qureshi, stepped forward, voice cautious but authoritative. "Sir, may I help you?" The man stopped, a brief glance at the classroom windows revealing the children staring at him. He raised a hand, dark eyes scanning the room, and smiled faintly, but it didn't reach his eyes. "I believe you can," he said, voice smooth, calculated. "I need to speak with Mr. Malik." Imran straightened, his posture unyielding. "You'll have to leave the school grounds. I'm responsible for my son here, and this is not a public forum." The man in black tilted his head, as if considering this. "I understand your concern," he said. "But some matters can't wait. Your son may be involved whether you like it or not." Aram felt his stomach twist. Involved? What could a stranger possibly want with him? And why did his father's calm demeanor suddenly feel strained, almost fragile? Mrs. Hayat gently placed her hand on Aram's shoulder. "Everything will be fine," she whispered. But even her voice carried a hint of worry. The classroom, once a safe space, now felt like a trap. Outside, the man's eyes flicked to the playground where a few children had gathered, drawn by the tension. He didn't flinch. His gaze returned to the classroom window, locking with Imran's. In that instant, Aram understood that this was no ordinary visitor. Imran's voice broke the silence, firm and low. "If you are here to threaten or intimidate my family, I must ask you to leave. Now." The man in black smiled again, this time with a subtle, chilling amusement. "Threaten? No, Mr. Malik. I am here to inform you. Information that your son must hear. And you too." Aram's hands tightened around the lunchbox. He had never heard his father sound cautious, but now there was a weight in his words, a sharp edge that made the room feel smaller, heavier. He wondered if this visitor understood just how much a 9-year-old could sense danger. "Very well," Imran said, his voice steady despite the tension. "But this conversation will be brief. You are not allowed inside the school. Step back, and I will meet you outside." The man in black nodded once, smoothly, and began walking around to the side entrance. Imran turned to Aram. "Stay inside, son. Do exactly as your teacher says. Do not come out. No matter what you hear." Aram's heart raced. His father's eyes, usually a source of comfort, now carried a hint of urgency that sent a ripple of fear through him. "Okay, Dad," he whispered. But his voice trembled. As Imran stepped outside, the man in black waited calmly. The principal followed, worried but careful. The tension in the air was almost tangible. Aram pressed himself against the edge of his desk, eyes glued to the window. He couldn't see their words, but he could hear their low tones, the quiet intensity that made him lean forward, trying to catch fragments. Suddenly, Tariq, the tall boy who had mocked Aram's lunchbox, whispered from across the room, "What's going on? Who's that guy?" Aram didn't answer. He couldn't. His gaze was locked outside, watching his father meet the stranger's eyes. The man in black handed Imran a slim envelope, and Imran's eyes flickered over it. There was a moment of silence, a pause so tense it felt like the room itself was holding its breath. Then Imran's jaw tightened, and he folded the envelope slowly. He turned to the stranger. "Thank you for the information. I will handle this. But know this, I protect my family, no matter the cost." The man in black's lips curved into the smallest of smiles. "I do not doubt that, Mr. Malik. But you will need to act carefully. Your son, he is more important than you realize." Before Imran could respond, the stranger's phone rang. He glanced at it, then turned and walked back toward the car, leaving a faint air of menace in his wake. Aram noticed the way the black car's engine hummed as it started again. Even as it disappeared down the street, the sense of foreboding lingered. Inside the classroom, the silence was deafening. The students had been holding their breath, watching everything unfold. Mrs. Hyatt exhaled, shaking her head. "Let's get back to class, children." "It's just another day," she said, though her voice lacked conviction. Aram sat frozen, heart still pounding. He opened his lunchbox again, seeking comfort in its familiar contents: a neatly packed sandwich, a small bottle of juice, a cookie wrapped in wax paper. The note from his father had shifted slightly, the edges curled. He picked it up, reading it again: "Be proud of who you are. Don't let anyone dim your light." But now, the words carried a new weight. He wasn't just facing bullies. Something larger, unknown, had stepped into his life. And he had to figure out, somehow, how to navigate it. Recess arrived, and the usual chaos returned, but Aram noticed the change immediately. The whispers, the sidelong glances, the small smiles of sympathy from students who had never spoken to him before. Even Tarek was quieter, watching Aram with a mix of curiosity and unease. Aram walked toward the playground, lunchbox in hand, keeping a careful eye on every shadow. He noticed a small group of students gathered near the swings. One of them, a girl named Sana, approached him cautiously. Are you okay?" she asked softly. "I saw what happened." "That man." Aram nodded slowly. "Yeah. I think so. My dad, he's handling it." Sana tilted her head. "Your dad, he's really brave." "Most dads wouldn't," she trailed off, looking at the playground around them. And the way that guy looked at him, it was scary. Aram felt a lump in his throat. Brave. That was a word he had never used to describe himself. But now, seeing his father's unwavering stance, and feeling that small spark of courage ignite inside him, he realized maybe bravery could be learned or inherited. As they spoke, Aram noticed Tarek and a few of his friends whispering nearby. He expected more teasing, more laughter. But instead, they were quiet, watching him cautiously, unsure whether to approach or retreat. Aram felt a strange sense of power, not the kind from anger or threats, but the quiet, steady power that came from knowing who you were and who stood behind you. The footsteps of the man in the black suit echoed across the schoolyard, deliberate and unyielding. Every student's gaze followed him, hearts pounding in their chests. Aram felt a cold shiver run down his spine, his hands clutching the edges of his desk as if the red lunchbox could somehow shield him from what was coming. His father, Imran, remained calm, his stance firm, yet Aram could see the tension flicker in the lines of his jaw, the slight tightening of his eyes. This wasn't just a parent-teacher moment. Something else was at play. The principal, Mr. Qureshi, stepped forward, voice cautious but authoritative. "Sir, may I help you?" The man stopped, a brief glance at the classroom windows revealing the children staring at him. He raised a hand, dark eyes scanning the room, and smiled faintly, but it didn't reach his eyes. "I believe you can," he said, voice smooth, calculated. "I need to speak with Mr. Malik." Imran straightened, his posture unyielding. "You'll have to leave the school grounds. I'm responsible for my son here, and this is not a public forum." The man in black tilted his head, as if considering this. "I understand your concern," he said. "But some matters can't wait. Your son may be involved whether you like it or not." Aram felt his stomach twist. Involved? What could a stranger possibly want with him? And why did his father's calm demeanor suddenly feel strained, almost fragile? Mrs. Hyatt gently placed her hand on Aram's shoulder. "Everything will be fine," she whispered. But even her voice carried a hint of worry. The classroom, once a safe space, now felt like a trap. Outside, the man's eyes flicked to the playground where a few children had gathered, drawn by the tension. He didn't flinch. His gaze returned to the classroom window, locking with Imran's. In that instant, Aram understood that this was no ordinary visitor. Imran's voice broke the silence, firm and low. "If you are here to threaten or intimidate my family, I must ask you to leave. Now." The man in black smiled again, this time with a subtle, chilling amusement. "Threaten? No, Mr. Malik. I am here to inform you. Information that your son must hear. And you too. Aram's hands tightened around the lunchbox. He had never heard his father sound cautious, but now there was a weight in his words, a sharp edge that made the room feel smaller, heavier. He wondered if this visitor understood just how much a 9-year-old could sense danger. Very well, Imran said, his voice steady despite the tension. But this conversation will be brief. You are not allowed inside the school. Step back, and I will meet you outside. The man in black nodded once, smoothly, and began walking around to the side entrance. Imran turned to Aram. Stay inside, son. Do exactly as your teacher says. Do not come out. No matter what you hear. Aram's heart raced. His father's eyes, usually a source of comfort, now carried a hint of urgency that sent a ripple of fear through him. Okay, Dad, he whispered. But his voice trembled. As Imran stepped outside, the man in black waited calmly. The principal followed, worried but careful. The tension in the air was almost tangible. Aram pressed himself against the edge of his desk, eyes glued to the window. He couldn't see their words, but he could hear their low tones, the quiet intensity that made him lean forward, trying to catch fragments. Suddenly, Tariq, the tall boy who had mocked Aram's lunchbox, whispered from across the room, "What's going on? Who's that guy?" Aram didn't answer. He couldn't. His gaze was locked outside, watching his father meet the stranger's eyes. The man in black handed Imran a slim envelope, and Imran's eyes flickered over it. There was a moment of silence, a pause so tense it felt like the room itself was holding its breath. Then Imran's jaw tightened, and he folded the envelope slowly. He turned to the stranger. Thank you for the information. I will handle this. But know this, I protect my family, no matter the cost. The man in black's lips curved into the smallest of smiles. I do not doubt that, Mr. Malik. But you will need to act carefully. Your son, he is more important than you realize. Before Imran could respond, the stranger's phone rang. He glanced at it, then turned and walked back toward the car, leaving a faint air of menace in his wake. Aram noticed the way the black car's engine hummed as it started again. Even as it disappeared down the street, the sense of foreboding lingered. Inside the classroom, the silence was deafening. The students had been holding their breath, watching everything unfold. Mrs. Hayat exhaled, shaking her head. Let's get back to class, children. It's just another day, she said, though her voice lacked conviction. Aram sat frozen, heart still pounding. He opened his lunchbox again, seeking comfort in its familiar contents, a neatly packed sandwich, a small bottle of juice, a cookie wrapped in wax paper. The note from his father had shifted slightly, the edges curled. He picked it up, reading it again, be proud of who you are. Don't let anyone dim your light. But now, the words carried a new weight. He wasn't just facing bullies. Something larger, unknown, had stepped into his life. And he had to figure out, somehow, how to navigate it. Recess arrived, and the usual chaos returned, but Aram noticed the change immediately. The whispers, the sidelong glances, the small smiles of sympathy from students who had never spoken to him before. Even Tariq was quieter, watching Aram with a mix of curiosity and unease. Aram walked toward the playground, lunchbox in hand, keeping a careful eye on every shadow. He noticed a small group of students gathered near the swings. One of them, a girl named Sana, approached him cautiously. Are you okay? She asked softly. I saw, what happened? That man. Aram nodded slowly. Yeah. I think so. My dad, he's handling it. Sana tilted her head. Your dad, he's really brave. Most dads wouldn't, she trailed off, looking at the playground around them. And the way that guy looked at him, it was scary. Aram felt a lump in his throat. Brave. That was a word he had never used to describe himself. But now, seeing his father's unwavering stance, and feeling that small spark of courage ignite inside him, he realized maybe bravery could be learned or inherited. As they spoke, Aram noticed Tariq and a few of his friends whispering nearby. He expected more teasing, more laughter. But instead, they were quiet, watching him cautiously, unsure whether to approach or retreat. Aram felt a strange sense of power, not the kind from anger or threats, but the quiet, steady power that came from knowing who you were and who stood behind you. Then the school bell rang, cutting through the afternoon calm. Aram's classroom would be dismissed soon, and he knew that outside, more uncertainty awaited. What had the man in the black suit meant when he said Aram was more important than you realize? Why had he singled him out? And what would happen next, now that his father had received the mysterious envelope? As the final minutes of class ticked away, Aram felt a new kind of anticipation, the kind that comes before a storm. He could feel it in the air, the tension, the unease, the sense that something was about to change everything. The bell rang, and children poured out into the hallways. Aram moved toward the door slowly, Lunchbox clutched tightly. He glanced at his father through the window. Imran was still outside, scanning the street, the envelope in his hand. There was a determined set to his shoulders that told Aram one thing clearly: whatever was coming, they would face it together. But as he stepped outside, the schoolyard suddenly felt larger, emptier. The shadows seemed longer, the afternoon sun harsher. And in the distance, Aram thought he saw the black car returning, moving slowly, deliberately, its headlights glinting. His heart hammered in his chest. Who was coming for them? What did they want? And was Aram ready for the world that had just begun to unfold around him, one that would test courage, loyalty, and the bond between father and son like never before? He gripped his lunchbox tighter, took a deep breath, and followed his father toward the gate, knowing that today would change everything. The schoolyard felt strangely quiet as Aram and his father, Imran, approached the main gate. Children were scattered around, but most were keeping their distance, casting nervous glances at the approaching black car. Its engine purred quietly, a low, ominous sound that seemed to echo in the air. Aram's small hands clutched the bright red lunchbox like a talisman, the weight of it grounding him even as his chest pounded. He glanced at his father, whose calm, measured steps betrayed none of the tension he felt. But Aram could see it in the slight tightening of Imran's jaw, the sharp alertness in his eyes. The black car stopped near the gate, and the man in the suit stepped out again, this time accompanied by another figure, a woman with sharp features, dark hair pulled into a severe bun, and eyes that seemed to pierce right through you. Aram's stomach twisted. They were no ordinary visitors. There was something in the way they moved, deliberate, controlled, as if they were used to commanding attention and obedience without raising their voices. "Mr. Malik," the man in black said smoothly, his voice carrying across the yard. "We need to speak now. Alone." Imran's eyes narrowed slightly. "Not here, not like this. You can speak in my office, or we can arrange somewhere private. But not in front of children." The woman smiled faintly, a cold smile that didn't reach her eyes. "I think it would be wise to hear us now. The matter concerns your son directly. There is no time for delay." Aram felt a chill run down his spine. "My son," he whispered under his breath. The words echoed ominously. What could these strangers possibly want with a 9-year-old boy? And why did his father's expression grow so serious at their insistence? Imran placed a firm hand on Aram's shoulder. "Stay close to me," he murmured. "Whatever happens, don't run." Aram nodded, though his heart raced. The air seemed thicker, charged with tension and unspoken threats. Even the children who had been cautiously watching from a distance seemed frozen in place, sensing the shift. The man in black moved a step closer, his voice low but deliberate. "Mr. Malik, you are aware that your son has certain potential, correct?" Imran's eyes flicked to Aram, and the boy felt a sudden surge of pride mixed with fear. Potential? What did that mean? Potential for what? His father asked evenly, though his hands tightened at his sides. Potential that others might exploit, the woman said, stepping forward. Potential that, if left unchecked, could place him and those he loves at risk. Aram's stomach twisted. Exploit? Risk? He looked at his father, searching for reassurance, but saw only a sharp seriousness he had never noticed before. This was bigger than teasing at school. This was bigger than any challenge he had faced in his life. "Let's take a walk," Imran said finally, his tone calm but resolute. I don't want my son seeing more than necessary. You will explain quietly. The man in black nodded once, and the three of them began walking down the sidewalk away from the school. Aram stayed close to his father, watching the strangers carefully, feeling the weight of every step. The shadows of the trees stretched long across the pavement, and he realized how vulnerable he felt, yet, in the presence of his father, he also felt strangely protected. They reached a quieter part of the school grounds, where the buzz of children faded into the distance. Imran turned to face the man and woman fully. Now, explain. And be honest. I will not tolerate lies, threats, or games. The woman's lips curved in the faintest of smiles. Very well, Mr. Malik. Your son, Aram, is different. He has abilities that are rare, unique. We work for an organization that monitors and sometimes protects children like him. But now, there are forces who know about him. Forces that will not wait and will not hesitate to take advantage. Aram's jaw dropped. Abilities, he whispered. What do you mean? The man in black looked directly at him, his dark eyes unwavering. You may have noticed things, small things, unusual moments, things others dismiss. Those moments are just the beginning. You have the potential to do remarkable things. But there are people, dangerous people, who would exploit that potential for their own gain. Aram looked down at his lunchbox, suddenly feeling absurdly small in the face of words he barely understood. The laughter at school, the teasing, it seemed almost trivial now. Yet, in some strange way, the red lunchbox felt like a symbol of his courage, the first stand he had ever taken, the moment he had decided he would not be pushed around. Imran stepped closer to his son. Aram, he said, his voice low but firm, you are important. Not just to me, not just to the school, but to the world. And right now, we must protect you. These people, they are warning us. But we must be careful. Trust is earned, and threats are real. The woman nodded. Exactly. There isn't much time. The people who know about him are already moving. We can provide guidance, protection, but you, Mr. Malik, must decide how much you involve your son. He is still very young. And yet, there is no way to hide him completely. Aram's mind whirled. Protection? Danger? Unique abilities? He wanted to run, to hide under the safety of his father's jacket, but he also felt a strange spark of curiosity, the same spark that had allowed him to finally stand up for himself with the lunchbox. Was this another moment where courage mattered more than fear? Just then, the distant sound of a car horn made him flinch. He looked up, and in the street nearby, another black vehicle was parked, its engine running. A shadow moved inside, watching. Aram felt the familiar tightening in his chest, the same sensation he had felt when the first black car appeared. His father's eyes narrowed. They're here sooner than expected, he muttered. His hand gripped Aram's shoulder firmly, a silent signal of reassurance. Stay close. Aram nodded, though his legs felt heavy. Dad, what do they want from me? Imran's expression softened for just a moment. Not from you, not exactly. But they want to use what's inside you, your mind, your courage, your instincts. And that is something I will never allow. Do you understand? Yes, Aram whispered, though fear and confusion battled in his chest. The man in black stepped forward again, this time glancing at Aram. He is ready for more than you realize, Mr. Malik. The first steps are small. But soon, he will face choices that no child should have to make. Aram's stomach tightened. Choices. He had already faced one today, standing up for himself against bullies. But this felt monumental, like the difference between walking through a door and being thrown into a storm. Before Imran could respond, the woman spoke again, her tone cutting through the tension. We will return tomorrow. There is much to discuss, and time is short. But for now, stay vigilant. Trust no one outside this circle. And remember, the world is not as safe as it seems, even in a schoolyard. Aram's eyes widened. Even here? Yes, Imran said quietly, his jaw set. Even here. But we will face it together. I promise you that. As they walked back toward the school, Aram couldn't shake the feeling that everything he had known as school, friends, ordinary life, was changing. The laughter at lunch, the teasing, the small victories, all seemed insignificant compared to the shadow now hovering over his life. Back in the classroom, Mrs. Hyatt noticed the change in him immediately. Aram, are you all right? She asked, concern in her voice. Aram nodded slowly, gripping his lunchbox. I'm okay, he said, though his mind was racing with questions he didn't yet have answers to. The envelope his father had received rested in Imran's coat pocket, and though Aram hadn't seen its contents, he knew it was connected to everything: this warning, these strangers, the danger that now loomed. Tariq watched him from across the room, still cautious, still unsure. But Aram no longer felt fear toward him. He realized that courage wasn't just standing up to bullies, it was facing the unknown, facing shadows bigger than anything he could imagine, and trusting that those who loved you would fight by your side. As the last school bell rang, signaling the end of the day, Aram and his father walked toward the gate. The black car had disappeared for now, but the sense of unease remained. He noticed the way his father's eyes scanned the street, always alert, always calculating. And for the first time, Aram realized that the world was much larger, much stranger, and far more dangerous than he had ever imagined. What happens next? Aram asked quietly, clutching his lunchbox. Imran looked down at him, his expression unreadable, a mix of resolve and worry. Next, we prepare. And we stay ready. Because the moment danger comes, we cannot wait. We must act. Aram's small hands tightened around the lunchbox again. He took a deep breath, feeling both fear and determination. Whatever lay ahead, he would face it not alone, but with his father. And perhaps, in that bond, he would find the courage to meet whatever shadows were coming for him. But even as they left the school grounds, Aram couldn't shake the image of the black car, the man, the woman, and the words that had chilled him to his core, choices no child should have to make. The afternoon sun dipped lower, casting long shadows across the quiet streets near Lincoln Elementary. Aram walked beside his father, clutching the red lunchbox as if it were a shield against the unseen dangers that seemed to lurk just beyond the corners of the world. The schoolyard, now empty, carried a strange stillness, like the calm before a storm. Even the chirping of birds seemed muted, subdued by the tension that hummed in the air. Imran's eyes scanned every movement, every passing car, every shadow stretching across the pavement. His steps were calm, measured, but his mind raced with possibilities. The envelope the strangers had handed him earlier burned metaphorically in his pocket, a symbol of threats, secrets, and decisions he had not yet faced. Aram could sense it too, the weight of unspoken dangers pressing down on them. Dad, do you think they're coming back? Aram asked softly, voice trembling. Imran glanced down at him, placing a firm hand on his shoulder. They may be. But we don't wait to see who comes. We prepare for what may come. Aram nodded, though his small hands trembled. Courage wasn't easy. Today had already tested him in ways he hadn't imagined. The teasing at school had felt like a mountain. But now, the mountain had grown into a cliff, and beyond it, he could sense something much larger, much more dangerous. The walk home was tense. The streets seemed eerily quiet, every corner holding a potential threat. Even familiar landmarks, the bakery with its sweet aroma, the small park where children played, felt different, as though shadows had crept in, painting them with uncertainty. Aram's mind buzzed with questions. Why had the strangers singled him out? What did they mean by potential? And what kind of danger could reach him in the heart of his ordinary, everyday life? Back at their apartment, Imran ushered Aram inside, closing the door carefully behind them. The familiar warmth of home was comforting, but Aram noticed the faint tension in the way his father moved, the way he shut the door, the way he glanced at the windows. Even here, they weren't completely safe. Sit down, son, Imran said, motioning toward the kitchen table. I need to explain a few things. Things you may not understand yet, but they are important. Aram sat, gripping the lunchbox as though it were his anchor. His mind raced, trying to prepare for what his father might say. Aram, Imran began, his voice low and deliberate, the people who came to the school today, they are part of an organization that deals with unusual cases. Cases like yours. But you need to understand something first. There are those who see what you are, and they will try to use it for their own purposes. For power, for control, for things you cannot even imagine yet. Aram's eyes widened. Me? Why me? Imran sighed, sitting down across from him. Because you are different, son. You've always noticed things, haven't you? Small things others overlook, moments when you seem to understand more than anyone else around you? Aram thought of the mornings at school, the way he had sensed the teasing before it happened, the small moments when he had acted without knowing why, instinct guiding him. I think so, he admitted, voice barely above a whisper. That's it, Imran said, nodding slowly. Your mind, your instincts, they are extraordinary. But extraordinary can be dangerous. And there are people who will try to take advantage of that. That's why the man and woman came today. They were warning us, yes, but also testing. They want to see if you are ready. Aram's stomach twisted. Ready? Ready for what? The word felt heavy, almost impossible. But I'm just a kid, Dad. I don't know if I can. I don't even know what I'm supposed to do. Imran reached out, placing a steady hand over his son's. Courage doesn't mean knowing everything, Aram. Courage is choosing to act even when you don't know the outcome. You've already done it today with the lunchbox. You stood up for yourself. That's the first lesson. Aram nodded slowly, trying to absorb the words. His father's presence, his calm authority, made him feel stronger than he ever had before. But what if I can't do it again? What if something really bad happens? Then we face it together, Imran said firmly. I will always be with you, and together, we'll make the right choices. But you must promise me one thing. Anything, Aram said without hesitation. You must promise to trust your instincts. When something feels wrong, it probably is. And when you feel courage, act on it, even if it scares you. Aram swallowed hard, nodding. He had never felt the weight of responsibility so clearly before. The teasing at school now felt like a distant memory, almost trivial compared to the real danger his father was warning him about. The conversation was interrupted by a faint beep from Imran's phone. He glanced at the screen and his face tightened. It's a message from the organization. They said someone was spotted near your school again, watching. They're moving faster than we thought. Aram's eyes widened. Near my school, today? But they were already there. Yes, Imran said grimly. And now they are closer. We need to be careful. Tonight, we prepare. Tomorrow, we decide how to respond. You understand, son? Aram nodded, though his hands trembled. He felt the weight of the world pressing down on him, but there was also a strange spark, a feeling that he had already faced fear once today, and somehow survived. Perhaps he could do it again. That evening, they took precautions around the apartment. Windows were checked, doors locked, shadows outside scrutinized. Imran showed Aram how to notice unusual patterns, cars that stayed too long, people who appeared too often, movements that didn't belong. It was like a game of observation, but deadly serious. Aram paid close attention, learning quickly, aware that this wasn't play, it was survival. As night fell, the city lights flickered on, painting long shadows across the streets below. Aram sat by the window, lunchbox beside him, and watched for any sign of movement. His father was in the living room, going over the envelope again, scanning it, making notes. There was a calm focus in him that both reassured and unnerved Aram. Hours passed, and the quiet stretched. Aram felt sleep tugging at his eyelids, but he couldn't rest completely. Every sound outside, the distant hum of a car, the shuffle of feet on the sidewalk, made him tense. He realized, perhaps for the first time, that life was not as predictable as he had thought. Safety was fragile, and courage was precious. Just before midnight, a shadow flickered across the alley outside. Aram gasped quietly, gripping the edge of the window. Imran was immediately at his side, eyes narrowing as he scanned the street below. A figure, barely visible, slipped behind a parked van and disappeared. They're here, Imran said quietly, voice barely above a whisper. They're testing us, watching us. But we'll be ready. Aram swallowed hard, his heart pounding. He realized that the teasing, the lunchbox, the first battles at school, all of it had been preparation, in a way. Courage was not something you learned from books or games. It was something you faced, step by step, in moments that could scare you beyond reason. He looked at his father, saw the unwavering determination in his eyes, and felt a strange mixture of fear and hope. Together, they were stronger than he could have imagined. And yet, the shadow outside, the mysterious strangers, the sense of danger lingering in every corner, it all whispered the same thing: nothing would ever be normal again. Tomorrow, they would face the first real test. And Aram knew, deep in his heart, that courage, love, and trust would be his only weapons against whatever was coming. Night had settled over the city like a heavy, velvet curtain, draping every street, alley, and rooftop in shadows. The glow of streetlights cast flickering patterns across the apartment walls where Aram and his father, Imran, waited, alert. Outside, the usual hum of city life had softened, leaving only the occasional distant car and the whisper of the wind through trees. Yet within the silence, Aram felt a pulse of tension, a rhythm that matched his racing heart. This wasn't just another ordinary evening, it was a test, and somehow, he knew the strangers were out there, watching, calculating, waiting. Imran moved silently through the apartment, checking locks and windows, pausing at each one to scan the street below. His movements were careful, deliberate, almost ritualistic, as though each step were a safeguard against unseen threats. Aram followed closely, clutching his red lunchbox, a symbol now of courage and a tether to the ordinary life he still craved. "Stay close," Imran whispered, crouching near the window. "They could try something tonight. Watch and listen carefully. If you see anything unusual, don't act on your own. Do you understand?" "Yes, Dad," Aram whispered, though his small chest heaved with fear and anticipation. His eyes darted toward the alley below, straining in the darkness. Every rustle of leaves, every shadow that moved across the street set his nerves on edge. Yet, beneath the fear, there was something stronger, a spark of courage, the same one that had allowed him to stand up at school earlier. Hours passed. Midnight came and went. The city, though quiet, seemed alive with subtle movements, shifts in the shadows, faint glimmers of light reflecting off car windows. Aram had almost started to drift into uneasy sleep when he noticed a faint figure moving across the street, near the corner of the block. His eyes widened. "Dad, someone's outside," he whispered urgently, pointing. Imran's eyes flicked toward the figure, narrowing instantly. "Stay calm," he said, his voice low but firm. "Watch, and remember everything. Don't make a sound." The figure moved with purpose, staying in the shadows, occasionally glancing toward the apartment windows. It was hard to make out any details, but Imran could sense it, the same methodical observation, the same deliberate calculation he had seen at the school. "They're testing us," Imran muttered under his breath. "They want to see how we react." Aram felt a cold shiver run down his spine. Testing? He wanted to hide, to retreat under the safety of blankets and forget this terrifying world outside. But he also felt that spark of courage flare. The red lunchbox on the counter suddenly seemed like a talisman, a reminder that he had already faced fear and survived. Suddenly, the apartment door rattled softly, a subtle but distinct sound. Imran's eyes locked on it instantly. He moved toward it with the careful precision of someone trained to anticipate danger, every muscle taut. Aram followed, staying behind, heart hammering in his chest. "Who's there?" Imran called, his voice steady but commanding. No answer. Only the soft scuff of footsteps on the hallway carpet, almost imperceptible. Aram swallowed hard. Every instinct in his body screamed to run, to hide, to call for help. But he remembered his father's words: "Courage is acting even when you don't know the outcome." Imran reached the door and peered through the peephole. The hallway was empty. No one there. His eyes narrowed, scanning every corner. "It's a test," he muttered. "They're pushing us, Aram. See how alert we are. They're gauging our reactions." Aram nodded, gripping the lunchbox tighter. He felt a strange mix of fear and determination. He wanted to shrink, to hide, but he also knew this was the moment where courage mattered most. Minutes later, the sound of a car door closing echoed faintly on the street below. Imran moved to the window again, and Aram noticed something unusual, a shadow shifting near the parked black car, too deliberate to be random. His pulse quickened. "They're watching us, from outside," he whispered. "Yes," Imran said calmly. "But that's why we prepare. We don't panic. We act with awareness. They want to provoke fear, Aram. Don't give them that satisfaction." Suddenly, a faint tapping sound came from the balcony door. Aram froze, staring in disbelief. The handle rattled slightly, as if someone were trying to test if it was locked. His father was immediately at his side, placing a firm hand on his shoulder. "Aram," he whispered, "stay back. I will handle this. Watch and learn, but don't interfere." The red lunchbox in Aram's hands felt heavier than ever, a symbol of courage, now a witness to a moment far beyond schoolyard teasing. He stayed close, watching as his father approached the balcony door, eyes scanning the shadows outside. Then, as Imran peered through the glass, the tapping stopped. A folded piece of paper had been slipped through the gap beneath the door. Imran picked it up carefully, scanning its contents. His face hardened. "It's a warning," he said quietly, turning to Aram. "They know we're alert. They know we're prepared. This is just the first message." Aram's stomach twisted. "What does it say?" he asked, voice barely audible. Imran hesitated, then knelt beside him. "It says, be ready. The moment comes soon." Aram felt a chill run down his spine. This wasn't a joke. This wasn't teasing. This was a direct threat, a promise of action. He looked at his father, searching for reassurance, and found it, but also a result he hadn't seen before. "They're coming," Imran said quietly. "And we must be ready. This is the first real test, Aram. Not just of courage, but of our ability to stay calm, to observe, to make decisions." The minutes dragged on, each tick of the clock loud in their ears. Aram stayed close to his father, learning silently, watching every movement outside, every flicker of shadow, every shift in light. It was exhausting, terrifying, but also enlightening. He realized that courage wasn't the absence of fear, it was acting despite fear, even when every instinct screamed to run. At last, the car's headlights appeared down the street again, moving slowly, deliberately. Imran's eyes narrowed. "Here they come," he said. "Watch closely." Aram's pulse raced. He clutched the lunchbox like a shield, his small body tense, ready to follow his father's lead. The black car stopped near the end of the block, and a shadow moved inside, just beyond the windshield glare. Aram could barely make out the figure of the man in black, the same one from school, sitting silently, observing. "What do we do, Dad?" he whispered. "We wait. We observe. And when the moment comes, we act with precision," Imran replied. "Patience is a weapon, Aram. Courage without patience is recklessness." The car's engine hummed softly as the figure watched. Aram felt his heart hammering in his chest, every nerve alive with fear and anticipation. The night stretched, heavy with uncertainty, and he realized that this was only the beginning. The strangers had tested them today, but tomorrow the true challenge would come. He looked at his father, then at the red lunchbox, and felt a strange clarity. Courage wasn't about winning or defeating anyone, it was about standing firm, observing, learning, and acting when the time was right. And tonight, he would learn what it truly meant to be brave. The night had deepened into a heavy, velvet darkness, the kind that swallowed every street lamp and turned ordinary alleys into narrow corridors of fear. Inside the apartment, Aram's small hands clutched the red lunchbox tightly, as if it were both armor and talisman. He crouched beside his father, eyes wide and alert, heart hammering in a rhythm that matched the tension in the air. Outside, the city seemed asleep, but Aram knew better now. Danger could arrive silently, anywhere, at any time. Imran moved like a shadow himself, pacing the small living room, checking every window and listening for even the faintest sound. His jaw was set, his eyes sharp, betraying no panic but carrying the weight of vigilance. Tonight, he whispered, almost to himself, is the first real test. Not just for Aram, but for me. We cannot falter, even for a second. Aram nodded, swallowing hard. The words from earlier replayed in his mind, choices no child should have to make. And now, those choices were here. Already, they had been pushed to the edge, tested in ways no schoolyard teasing could ever prepare him for. A sudden noise, soft, deliberate, from the fire escape outside, made Aram freeze. He pressed himself against the wall, his pulse spiking. Imran was immediately at his side, hand on his shoulder, guiding him toward the corner near the kitchen where shadows were deepest. "Quiet," he whispered. "Watch. Observe. Don't move unless I say." Aram nodded, eyes straining in the dim light. A shadow shifted on the fire escape, a figure moving with slow, precise steps. Aram's stomach churned. It was the man from the black car, the one from the school, observing them, testing them again. And this time, he wasn't alone. Another figure, taller, broader, remained near the alley below, scanning the street like a predator. "They've come," Imran murmured. "They're testing how alert we are. They want to see if fear will control us. But we won't give them that. We act when the time is right." Aram's hands trembled slightly around the lunchbox, but beneath the fear, there was a spark, a small, fierce flame that his father had helped ignite. Courage, he realized, wasn't the absence of fear, it was acting despite it. Then, a faint click echoed from the balcony door. The lock had been tampered with. Aram's heart leapt into his throat. Imran motioned silently for him to stay back, moving with precision toward the source. His body was taut with anticipation, every sense sharpened. A shadow emerged, sliding through the slightly ajar door. Imran reacted instantly, intercepting the figure, pushing it back with controlled force. A scuffle ensued, quick and intense, the sound of movement muffled but palpable. Aram's stomach knotted. He had never seen his father like this, fast, precise, unyielding. "Stay behind me, Aram," Imran barked, grappling with the intruder. Aram pressed himself to the wall, watching, every instinct screaming to run but remembering his father's teachings. Observe. Assess. Act when necessary. The intruder was strong, but Imran was stronger, his movements controlled, deliberate. In a few tense moments, the man was pinned, struggling, and then thrown against the balcony railing, where he hung for a second before slumping to the ground outside. Aram gasped, the lunchbox clutched to his chest. The reality hit him fully, this was no longer a warning. This was real. Danger had arrived at their door, and they had survived the first encounter. Imran's eyes scanned the street again, noting movement from the alley. "They're testing us further," he said grimly. "We can't be careless. They're watching every step." Aram felt a strange mix of awe and fear. His father had handled the intruder with precision, but the world had changed. He wasn't a child worrying about lunchboxes and bullies anymore. He was part of a battle he barely understood, yet could not escape. The sound of tires on asphalt drew their attention. Another black car had parked silently down the block, engine off, lights dimmed. The man from earlier stepped out, accompanied by two others this time. Aram's stomach churned. They were organized, methodical, and now, emboldened. "Dad, what do we do?" he whispered, voice trembling. "We watch. We prepare. And if necessary, we defend," Imran replied. "But fear will not guide us. Courage will." The figures moved closer, careful, coordinated. It was clear, they weren't just testing, they were probing, assessing how the apartment was defended, how alert the father and son were. Aram noticed small details he had never considered, the way one figure checked the door handle while the other scanned the windows, the way they communicated silently with gestures. His heart pounded, but his mind absorbed it all. Observation was as important as action. Then, a sudden movement, a shadow darting toward the side entrance, made Aram freeze. Imran reacted instantly, intercepting the figure before it could reach the door. The scuffle was brief but fierce, and the intruder fled into the night, leaving only a faint echo of footsteps and the ominous feeling that this was only the beginning. Aram's breath came in short, sharp gasps. "Dad, they tried to come in." "Yes," Imran said calmly, though his jaw was tight. "And we stopped them. But they'll be back. They always come back. That's why we prepare. Every movement, every choice, every instinct matters now. Aram nodded slowly, his hands gripping the lunchbox. The symbol of his courage suddenly felt more real than ever, a reminder that even a small boy, with the right guidance, could face fear and survive. He realized that bravery wasn't about fighting alone, it was about trust, about learning, about acting with those who had your back. Hours later, as the night deepened and the city's noises softened, Imran and Aram sat together, reviewing what had happened. They didn't speak much, words felt inadequate. Instead, they went over details silently, noting movements, shadows, and behaviors. Aram absorbed every lesson, understanding that each observation was a step toward survival. Suddenly, the faint glow of headlights appeared at the end of the street again. Imran's eyes narrowed. "They're not done," he said. "And tomorrow, the real challenge begins. The first test is over, but the real confrontation is coming." Aram swallowed hard, feeling the weight of responsibility settle on his small shoulders. Courage, he realized, wasn't a single moment, it was continuous, a series of choices in the face of fear. And he had already made one choice tonight: to stand, to watch, to learn, and to trust his father. The shadows outside lingered as they prepared for what was to come. Aram knew one thing for certain: the world he had known, the simple, ordinary life of school and playgrounds, was gone. In its place was a larger, darker world where courage and instinct were the only shields against danger. Would they be ready for the next strike? Could a father and his 9-year-old son survive the challenges that loomed? And when the darkness returned, would Aram find the strength to act, or would fear take hold? The night stretched on, thick with tension, as father and son sat together, learning, preparing, waiting. And somewhere in the shadows, the figures that had tested them tonight were already planning their next move. The city streets were silent but for the distant hum of occasional traffic, a deceptive calm that only heightened the tension inside Aram's small apartment. Outside, darkness pooled in the alleys and between buildings, hiding whatever was watching, waiting. Aram sat on the edge of the couch, the red lunchbox on his lap, a lifeline of courage he had learned to cling to. The events of the previous night had left him restless, aware that danger was no longer something abstract, it was real, immediate, and relentless. Imran paced near the window, scanning every movement outside. His jaw was tight, his posture taut, as if every fiber of his being was on high alert. "Tonight," he murmured, more to himself than to Aram, "they'll escalate. The tests are over. The real strike comes soon." Aram's small hands trembled slightly. "Dad, do you think we can stop them?" he asked softly. His voice carried the weight of someone too young to fully comprehend the darkness closing in, yet too brave to turn away. "Yes," Imran replied, his tone steady, resolute. "But it won't be easy. We must be clever, patient, and precise. Courage alone won't be enough. We have to act with our minds as well as our hearts." The apartment seemed to shrink around them, each shadow a potential threat, each flicker of light a signal of unseen eyes. Aram realized that fear had become a constant companion, but it was tempered now with understanding, a recognition that courage and vigilance were inseparable. Then, the first sign came: a faint scratch at the front door. Almost imperceptible, but enough to make Aram's heart lurch. Imran's hand immediately went to the doorframe, feeling for vibrations, listening for movement. "Quiet," he whispered. "They're coming." Aram pressed himself to the wall, eyes wide. He watched as his father moved with purpose, every motion deliberate, every step measured. The intruders were not reckless, they were calculating, professional. And now, they were closing in. A second later, a shadow flitted past the living room window. Imran's eyes narrowed. "Positions," he instructed quietly. "Stay behind me, Aram. Remember what we practiced. Observe. Be ready." The minutes dragged, thick with tension. The scratching grew louder, deliberate, as though someone were testing their defenses, gauging reactions. And then a flash of movement. The front door handle rattled violently, the door shaking under the pressure of someone trying to force entry. "Dad, they're trying to come in," Aram whispered, fear and adrenaline mixing in his voice. "Yes," Imran said calmly, though his eyes were sharp. "And we'll meet them on our terms. Courage, Aram. Remember the lunchbox. Courage. Imran moved swiftly, intercepting the first intruder as the door gave slightly under pressure. The man was strong, but Imran's training, experience, and precision were unmatched. They collided with a controlled force, the struggle intense but brief. The intruder was thrown back, sliding across the floor with a muffled grunt. Aram's eyes widened, gripping the lunchbox as if it were a shield. He wanted to help, but he remembered his father's instructions: observe, learn, act when necessary. Courage, he realized, was not just physical, it was mental. The struggle continued, shadows flitting across the room as more intruders attempted to breach the apartment. Imran intercepted each one with calculated precision, disarming, controlling, and neutralizing threats without panic. Aram watched, absorbing every detail, the angles, the timing, the way his father used the environment to his advantage. And then, a sharp, cold voice cut through the tension. Enough, Malik. Step aside. The boy is coming with us. Aram froze. His small body trembled, the weight of the moment pressing down on him. These weren't ordinary strangers, they were professionals, organized, ruthless. And now, their focus was on him. No, Imran said, stepping in front of his son. You will not take him. Not now, not ever. The tension escalated instantly. The intruders shifted, reassessing, circling with caution. They were skilled, dangerous, and patient. But Imran's resolve was immovable, his stance protective, unwavering. Aram realized, in that moment, the depth of his father's courage. It wasn't just about strength, it was about love, about an unwavering commitment to protect him, no matter the cost. And somehow, that knowledge ignited a spark within him, a small, fierce flame of courage that he hadn't fully recognized until now. The intruders hesitated, then retreated slightly, regrouping outside the apartment. Their intention was clear: they would not stop until they had him, but they also recognized the cost of rushing in recklessly. This was a test, a game, a warning, and a prelude to something far more dangerous. Imran turned to Aram, his expression serious but calm. Do you understand what's happening? He asked. Yes, Aram said quietly, gripping the lunchbox tighter. They want me. But I'm not afraid. You should be cautious, Imran replied, nodding. Fear is natural, but it cannot control you. Courage is not the absence of fear, it is action despite it. And tonight, action will be necessary. Hours passed, the night stretching into an endless shadowed expanse. The intruders did not attempt another direct entry, but their presence was felt: vehicles parked across the street, movements in the alley, faint whispers carried by the wind. Aram and his father remained alert, observing, preparing, learning. Every shadow, every sound, every movement was a lesson in awareness, a test of patience and courage. Then, just before dawn, a faint tapping came at the window. Aram froze, the lunchbox pressing against his chest. Imran moved swiftly, opening the window slightly to peek outside. A small, folded note had been slipped through the crack. He picked it up carefully and read aloud, his voice low but firm. Tomorrow, the choice will be yours. One mistake, and he is lost. Be ready. Aram's stomach tightened. The warning was clear: tomorrow, the stakes would be higher. No more tests, no more probing. This was the real confrontation. And the choice, whatever it might be, would fall on him as well as his father. He looked at the lunchbox, then at his father, and realized something crucial. Courage was not just about facing fear, it was about making choices, even when the path was unclear and danger loomed. Dad. I think I understand, he whispered. I have to be ready. Imran nodded, placing a steady hand on his son's shoulder. Exactly, Aram. You must trust yourself. Trust your instincts. Courage is more than action, it's wisdom under pressure. And tomorrow, that wisdom will be tested like never before. As the first light of dawn began to seep through the blinds, casting long, pale streaks across the living room, Aram felt a strange calm settle over him. The fear was still there, sharp and insistent, but it was now tempered by purpose, by understanding, by the knowledge that he was not alone. His father was with him, guiding, protecting, teaching. And the red lunchbox on the table, once a simple object, had become a symbol of courage, resilience, and the small but powerful choices that defined him. The city outside remained quiet, deceptively calm, but both father and son knew it was only temporary. Shadows had come, strikes had begun, and tomorrow, everything would change. The real test, the first true choice, was waiting, looming, inevitable, and unavoidable. The sun had barely begun to rise, spilling pale gold across the city streets when Aram awoke, his small body tense with anticipation. The apartment was quiet, deceptively calm after the long, terrifying night. He sat on the edge of his bed, red lunchbox on his lap, a silent reminder of courage, resilience, and the battles he had already faced. Every fiber of his being was alert, aware that today would be different. Today, the choice awaited, and it was his to make. Imran entered the room quietly, his expression calm but taut with anticipation. He crouched beside his son, placing a firm hand on his shoulder. "Are you ready, Aram?" he asked, voice low but steady. I think so, Dad," Aram whispered, gripping the lunchbox. "I'm scared, but I'm ready." "That's good," Imran said. "Courage isn't the absence of fear. It's acting despite it. And today, you'll see exactly what that means." They moved silently through the apartment, checking locks, windows, and every potential entrance. Every step was deliberate, every action methodical. The events of the past nights had sharpened their awareness, teaching them that even the smallest lapse could have consequences. Outside, the city seemed deceptively quiet. The black car from the previous nights was gone, leaving only the faint impression that something was coming, a shadow looming on the horizon. Aram's pulse quickened. He understood now that courage was more than bravery, it was vigilance, focus, and the willingness to act when the moment demanded. Then, the first sound came, a soft, deliberate knock at the front door. Aram froze. His heart raced. Imran motioned for him to stay behind, moving carefully toward the door. The knocking came again, louder this time, insistent, almost commanding. "Who is it?" Imran called, voice firm. A cold, mechanical voice replied from the other side, "Open the door, Malik. The boy belongs to us. One wrong move, and he is lost." Aram felt a chill run down his spine. These were no ordinary strangers. They were organized, dangerous, and determined. And now, the focus was entirely on him. He clutched the lunchbox tighter, feeling the weight of responsibility, fear, and courage all at once. "Stay calm," Imran whispered, turning to Aram. "Remember everything we've learned. Observe. Act when necessary. Courage is your weapon, wisdom your shield." Aram nodded, swallowing hard. Every instinct screamed to hide, but he knew this was the moment he had been preparing for. His father had shown him courage, patience, and focus, but now, it was his turn to act. The door rattled again, more forceful this time. Imran moved swiftly, intercepting the intruder as the first door handle gave slightly under pressure. A struggle erupted, tense and precise, the sound of movement muffled but palpable. Aram's small body tensed, ready to assist if needed, though he stayed carefully behind his father, learning, observing, and preparing. Then came the critical moment, a shadow slipped past the doorway, aiming directly for Aram. Instincts took over. His father was momentarily distracted by another intruder, and the shadow loomed over him. Aram's pulse hammered, fear colliding with courage, as he realized that the choice was his, act or risk being caught. He lifted the red lunchbox and swung it with all his might, a desperate but precise strike. The shadow stumbled back, surprised, momentarily off balance. Aram felt a surge of adrenaline, fear had been transformed into action. The intruder scrambled, but the momentum had shifted. His father recovered quickly, intercepting the intruder with controlled force, and together, father and son pushed the threat back, out of the apartment. Aram's chest heaved, the lunchbox still clutched tightly. He had faced fear, acted decisively, and survived. The reality of what had just happened began to sink in. He was no longer just the boy with the teased lunchbox. He was part of a team, a unit, a force that could stand against danger. The intruders regrouped outside, clearly frustrated. They were organized, trained, and relentless, but for the first time, they had underestimated the boy. Aram's courage had altered the balance, proving that strength was not just physical, but also mental and emotional. Imran crouched beside him, eyes steady, voice firm but filled with pride. You see, Aram? Courage is not just standing and fighting. It's understanding the moment, making a choice, and acting decisively. You made the right choice. Aram nodded slowly, heart still racing. He felt a strange mixture of fear, relief, and pride. The world was dangerous, unpredictable, and sometimes terrifying, but he now understood that he could meet it with courage, intelligence, and trust in those who had his back. The black car remained down the street, its engine idling, shadows shifting within. The intruders had not given up, they were patient, calculating, waiting for the next opportunity. But Aram's confidence had grown. He had faced the first real test, and he had acted decisively. Fear had been present, but it had not controlled him. Tomorrow, Imran said quietly, we prepare for what comes next. The world is not safe, Aram. Danger exists, always. But courage, wisdom, and love will guide us through. Aram looked at the red lunchbox, a symbol of both past trials and future resilience. He realized that every test, every shadow, every fear he had faced had been preparation not just for survival, but for understanding the power within himself. He was not merely a boy who had been laughed at for his lunchbox. He was a boy who had faced fear, made choices, and acted with courage. As the sun climbed higher, casting long, golden rays across the apartment, Aram felt a sense of calm determination settle over him. The intruders outside remained a threat, shadows waiting for the next opportunity, but he no longer felt helpless. He had learned the power of courage, patience, observation, and decisive action. And in that moment, he understood something profound: fear is temporary, but courage, real, tested courage, lasts forever. Could he continue to face danger with the same determination? Would the intruders return, stronger, more cunning, more relentless? And when they did, would Aram be ready to make the right choice again, standing with courage and wisdom, no matter the odds? The day stretched ahead, full of possibilities and dangers, and Aram knew one truth above all: the boy with the red lunchbox had grown. Fear had met him, but courage had guided him. And whatever came next, he would face it not as a child afraid, but as someone ready to choose, to act, and to survive. The city had returned to its usual rhythm, the morning sun spilling over rooftops and streets, washing away the long shadows of the night. Yet for Aram and his father, the calm was deceptive. The events of the past nights, the intruders, the warnings, the sudden attacks had left an indelible mark. The apartment felt smaller now, each creaking floorboard and passing car amplified in their minds, reminders that the danger was never truly gone. Aram sat at the kitchen table, the red lunchbox before him, a constant symbol of courage and resilience. His small hands traced the edges absent-mindedly, as though drawing strength from its presence. "Dad, do you think they'll come back today?" he asked, voice quiet, laced with tension. Imran stood by the window, arms crossed, eyes scanning the streets below. "They will," he said calmly. "They're not done. They've regrouped, and they're planning. But that's okay. That's what we've been preparing for. Every movement, every choice, every instinct, tomorrow, it all matters." Aram nodded slowly, absorbing his father's words. The fear was still there, a tight knot in his stomach, but it was now tempered with understanding. Courage, he realized, wasn't simply facing danger, it was being ready, mentally and physically, to respond when the moment came. The morning passed slowly. Imran and Aram checked the apartment meticulously, reinforcing locks, scanning every window, noting every potential entry point. They moved quietly, deliberately, aware that even a small lapse could be costly. Aram observed his father closely, noting the careful precision, the subtle awareness, the calm yet focused mindset. He realized that courage wasn't just action, it was preparation, vigilance, and the ability to stay calm under pressure. By noon, the tension had thickened into a tangible presence. From the window, Aram could see the faint outline of figures across the street, 3 men in black, moving with coordinated precision. They were observing, waiting, testing. The black car sat idling, engine quiet, as if it were a silent predator waiting for the right moment to strike. They're back, Aram whispered, gripping the lunchbox. What do we do? We wait, Imran replied. We observe. Every detail matters. Watch their movements. Notice patterns. Be ready to act, but do not rush. Aram squinted, trying to pick out subtle signals, the way one figure shifted weight, the way another scanned windows, the slight nods exchanged between them. Every gesture, every glance, every subtle motion was a clue. He felt a strange mix of fear and exhilaration. The intruders were professionals, but he was learning to see through their tactics, to anticipate their next move. Hours passed in tense observation. The intruders made no direct approach, only testing boundaries, probing weaknesses, and retreating when they were met with resistance. Aram learned quickly, noting every movement, every shift in the black uniforms, every pattern that hinted at their plans. It was exhausting, terrifying, and strangely empowering. Late in the afternoon, Imran received a faint message on his phone, a text that made his jaw tighten. The boy knows more than we expected. Prepare for escalation. Today, the choice becomes critical. Aram noticed the tension in his father's expression. What does that mean? He asked, voice trembling. It means, Imran replied, that today, they'll try something more direct. A confrontation. And you, Aram, may have to make a choice that matters. One wrong move, and it could all be lost. But I trust you. You've shown courage before. Today, you'll need it again, stronger than ever. The late afternoon light cast long shadows across the apartment, turning every corner, every object, every surface into a potential hiding place or threat. Aram felt the weight of responsibility pressing down on him. He wasn't just a boy anymore. He was part of a larger conflict, a test of courage, intelligence, and trust. Then, as the sun dipped toward the horizon, the black car moved. Slowly, deliberately, it approached the curb, stopping directly across from the building. 3 men stepped out, moving with practiced coordination. Their eyes were sharp, scanning, calculating, and their presence alone was enough to make Aram's stomach twist. Dad, they're coming toward us, he whispered, gripping the lunchbox like a shield. Yes, Imran said calmly. Stay close. Remember your training. Courage, observation, and precision. The choice is yours when the moment arrives. The intruders advanced carefully, circling the building, testing for weaknesses, peering into windows, checking doors. Each step, each movement, was deliberate, a psychological tactic as much as a physical one. Aram felt his heart pound, adrenaline surging through him. He remembered every lesson his father had taught him: patience, vigilance, and decisive action. Suddenly, one of the intruders tapped lightly on the side window, a clear attempt to provoke a reaction. Aram froze, remembering his father's warnings. Not yet. Observe. Wait. Another tap. Louder this time. The intruders were escalating, trying to break their calm, to force a mistake. Aram's hands tightened around the lunchbox. He felt fear clawing at him, but he also felt the spark of courage igniting, stronger than ever. He could not allow fear to dictate his actions. Imran's hand rested on his shoulder. Now, he whispered. The choice is yours. Act with courage, act with precision, and trust yourself. Aram took a deep breath, heart hammering. He had anticipated this moment, prepared for it, learned from the nights of tests and threats. He lifted the red lunchbox, not as a weapon, but as a shield and symbol, and swung it with careful aim, knocking the intruder's hand away from the window. The sound of impact echoed through the room, startling the others. Imran reacted instantly, intercepting the intruder while Aram's action created the opening they needed. Together, father and son pushed the intruders back, forcing them to retreat toward the car. But the confrontation wasn't over. The men regrouped, communicating silently, signaling that this was not the end. Aram's chest heaved. He had acted decisively, made the right choice, and altered the balance of power. Fear had been present, but courage had prevailed. He realized now that bravery was not just facing danger, it was making the right choice, under pressure, with intelligence and calm. The intruders returned to the black car, watching, waiting, clearly reassessing their tactics. Aram and his father remained alert, knowing that this was only one encounter in a larger challenge. But for the first time, he felt the surge of empowerment that came from making a critical choice, acting decisively, and standing firm despite fear. "Today, you've done more than just survive," Imran said quietly, crouching beside him. "You've acted with courage, made a choice under pressure, and shown that fear does not control you. That is the power of true bravery." Aram nodded slowly, still clutching the lunchbox. He felt a strange mixture of exhaustion, relief, and pride. The world was dangerous, unpredictable, and at times terrifying, but he had discovered something vital. Within him lay a courage that could face the darkness, make decisions, and act when necessary. Nightfall draped the city in shadows again, the darkness heavier than any day could bring. From the small apartment on the quiet street, the world outside seemed calm, almost deceivingly so. But Aram knew better. He had felt the tension building all day, each hour marked by careful observation and whispered warnings from his father. The intruders had retreated, but their presence lingered like a storm waiting to break. Tonight, he sensed, the storm would strike. Aram sat at the edge of the couch, red lunchbox on his lap, body tense with anticipation. His small fingers traced the edges as if drawing strength from it. Imran moved silently across the room, checking windows and doors again, eyes sharp, every muscle ready. "Tonight," he said quietly, "is when they try to overwhelm us. The tests are done. The real strike begins now. You've prepared, Aram. You've learned, you've observed, you've acted. Remember all of it." "Yes, Dad," Aram replied, swallowing hard, heart pounding in rhythm with the tension in the room. He remembered the last few nights, the shadow at the window, the tapping on doors, the warning notes slipped under the crack, the black car parked across the street. Everything had led to this. A faint hum outside caught Aram's attention, the soft, calculated engine of a vehicle moving into position. Imran stiffened, eyes narrowing as he peered through the blinds. Two black SUVs had appeared, their engines off, silhouettes sharp in the dim streetlights. The intruders had returned, far more organized, ready for confrontation. Aram's pulse surged. "They're coordinated," Imran whispered. "Not reckless. They've regrouped, planned. But we'll be ready." Aram gripped the lunchbox tighter. The weight felt heavier now, a mix of fear, courage, and determination. He was no longer the boy who had been laughed at school. He was a son learning the harsh lessons of survival, trust, and bravery. The first SUV stopped at the curb. Three men stepped out, moving in synchronized silence, scanning the street and apartment with calculated precision. The second SUV remained a shadowed presence, engine off, guarding their exit. Aram's eyes widened. They had escalated, the intruders weren't merely testing anymore, this was a full assault. "Stay close," Imran whispered, crouching beside him. "Observe. Choose your moment. Courage and action must work together. One wrong step, and it could be dangerous." The intruders approached the building, their movements deliberate. One of them tapped on the window, a psychological tactic to provoke fear. Aram's stomach twisted, but he remembered his father's teachings: do not react without thought. Wait, observe, act with precision. The second tap came, louder this time. The intruder's face appeared briefly in the window reflection, a mask of calculation, intent, and threat. Aram's pulse hammered, but he stayed focused. His father's hand rested on his shoulder, steadying him. "Now," Imran whispered. "The choice is yours." Aram inhaled deeply, heart thundering, and lifted the red lunchbox. Not as a weapon, but as a shield and a signal of defiance. He swung it with calculated force, striking the intruder's hand and forcing him back from the window. The sound of impact echoed sharply, startling the others and creating the opening they needed. Imran reacted instantly, intercepting the intruder while Aram's action had disrupted their advance. A coordinated struggle erupted, shadows moving across the apartment in rapid, tense motion. Aram felt fear collide with adrenaline. He stayed behind his father, ready to act, learning every movement, every reaction, every detail. The intruders were skilled, trained, and relentless. But for the first time, they were confronted by someone they hadn't fully anticipated, a boy who had observed, learned, and acted decisively, alongside a father who matched their skill and precision. A loud crash came from the balcony as one intruder attempted entry. Imran moved swiftly, intercepting him while Aram swung the lunchbox again, striking with precision. The coordinated effort forced the intruder to stumble back outside. The struggle was brief but intense, the apartment shook with movement and the echoes of exertion. Aram's chest heaved, the lunchbox still clutched to him. He realized something profound: courage was not absence of fear, but the ability to make choices, act decisively, and endure the pressure of the moment. Fear was real, heavy, and persistent, but it no longer controlled him. The intruders regrouped quickly outside, signaling each other. Their strategy was clear: persistent, coordinated assault, testing the father and son at every angle. Aram observed, noting patterns, anticipating moves, learning as he had over the previous nights. This was no longer a simple test, they were engaging in a battle of minds, instincts, and courage. Imran crouched beside him, eyes sharp. "Aram, this is the real moment. They've tested you, they've provoked you, and now, you know what to do. Stay calm. Trust yourself. Courage and observation guide action." The intruders made a sudden move, rushing the building. Aram's heart raced. This was it, the full assault. Shadows moved with purpose, a threat that was immediate and unavoidable. He lifted the lunchbox, remembering each lesson: patience, observation, courage, and decisive action. One of the intruders reached for him. Instinct surged, and Aram acted. He swung the lunchbox with force, striking precisely. The intruder staggered, giving Imran the opening to intercept and neutralize the threat. Together, they forced the intruders back, each movement a coordinated dance of courage, instinct, and learned skill. Outside, the remaining intruders hesitated, clearly reassessing. The black SUVs idled silently, a looming reminder that the danger was not over. But inside the apartment, father and son shared a fleeting moment of victory. They had acted decisively, courage meeting calculation, fear transformed into action. Aram's small body shook with adrenaline. "Dad, we did it," he whispered, voice trembling with a mix of relief and pride. "Yes," Imran said, crouching beside him. "We acted with courage, observation, and precision. But remember, Aram, tonight was just one battle. They will return. And we must be ready, always. Courage is continuous, it is not a single act, but a constant choice." The intruders eventually retreated, slipping into the darkness, leaving only the hum of the city. The apartment was quiet, but the tension lingered, a reminder that danger was persistent and unpredictable. Aram realized the magnitude of what he had faced: real fear, real choice, and real action. The red lunchbox, once a simple object, had become a symbol of resilience, courage, and the ability to act under pressure. "Tomorrow," Imran said quietly, "we continue to prepare. Danger is out there, but so is courage. And tonight, you've proven that even the smallest choice can have the greatest impact." Aram nodded, understanding fully for the first time. Courage was not an abstract idea. It was action, choice, vigilance, and resilience. And in that moment, he felt a strange sense of calm amidst the lingering tension. The intruders were still out there, shadows waiting, but he knew this: fear would not control him. Courage would guide him, and the lessons he had learned would endure. Could they withstand the next attack? Would courage, preparation, and decisiveness be enough against the relentless, organized threat? And when the intruders returned, because they would Aram and his father act with the same wisdom and bravery, or would the darkness finally find a crack to exploit? The night stretched onward, heavy with tension, shadows crawling, and the knowledge that this was far from over. But for the first time, Aram felt the true weight and power of courage in action. The city had fallen into a fragile silence after the first assault, but Aram and his father knew better than to trust it. The black SUVs had retreated into the night, but their presence had left an imprint, a lingering warning that danger was patient, calculating, and far from gone. From the small apartment, every shadow felt heavier, every creak in the floorboard sharper. Aram's pulse thumped in rhythm with the tension around him, and the red lunchbox lay on the table like a talisman, a symbol of courage he had come to rely upon. Imran moved with careful precision, scanning windows and doors, noting every minor detail. Tonight, he said quietly, crouching beside his son, they'll attempt something different. The direct assaults didn't work. Now they'll try to infiltrate, to find a weakness, to catch us off guard. That's why preparation and observation are key. Are you ready? Aram nodded, small hands gripping the lunchbox. I'm ready, he whispered, though his stomach twisted with the familiar mixture of fear and anticipation. The lessons of the past nights, patience, vigilance, courage, and decisive action had become second nature. Yet, he knew that the intruders were unpredictable, and the challenge tonight would demand everything he had learned. Hours passed in tense preparation. Imran reinforced locks, checked windows, and strategically placed objects to act as obstacles. Aram observed, absorbing every detail, noting the angles, the blind spots, the potential entry points. It was exhausting, but it was also empowering. He understood now that courage was not just reacting, it was anticipating, learning, and acting before danger struck. As the night deepened, a faint, almost imperceptible sound reached their ears, a soft scraping, deliberate, from the balcony. Aram froze, heart pounding. "Dad, did you hear that?" he whispered. "Yes," Imran replied, moving instantly toward the source. "Stay behind me. Observe. Don't act unless I say." The scraping grew louder. Someone was attempting to enter the apartment through the balcony door, a subtle, calculated infiltration. Imran's movements were precise and swift. He intercepted the intruder before the door could be opened fully, the struggle brief but intense. The man attempted to force his way inside, but Imran's experience and strength controlled the confrontation. Aram watched, every nerve alert. He recognized the strategy, they were attempting stealth, testing reactions, seeking the smallest crack to exploit. And this time, the intruders were smarter, more coordinated. Another sound, a faint click, came from the side window. A second intruder had attempted entry, moving with deliberate caution. Imran reacted instantly, neutralizing the threat before it could escalate. Aram's pulse raced. The intruders were persistent, clever, and dangerous, but each time, he noticed something new, their movements, their patterns, their subtle miscalculations. Observation, he realized, was a weapon as vital as courage. "Stay focused, Aram," Imran whispered, crouching beside him. "They're testing boundaries. They want a reaction. Do not give them one without thought. Courage is acting decisively at the right moment, not recklessly." The hours stretched into tense anticipation. Outside, shadows moved with patient calculation, the intruders probing, assessing, retreating, then probing again. Each movement was deliberate, designed to provoke fear or impatience. Aram remained alert, notes of courage and observation etched into his mind. He was learning to read the shadows, to anticipate, to respond with precision. Then, a sudden movement near the entrance made him stiffen. A figure attempted a more audacious approach, sliding silently toward the front door. Imran reacted immediately, intercepting the intruder before any real threat could materialize. The struggle was brief, precise, and controlled, but it sent a shiver down Aram's spine. The intruders had escalated from testing to infiltration, and the stakes were higher than ever. "Dad, they're trying to get inside," Aram whispered, voice tight. "Yes," Imran replied, eyes narrowing. "But they won't succeed. Not tonight. Courage and preparation protect us. Observation and patience guide our actions." Suddenly, a faint, almost imperceptible tapping came from the ceiling. The intruders had found a new approach, attempting to infiltrate from above. Aram's breath caught. He realized they were relentless, calculating every possible angle. But he also understood that each attempt revealed a pattern, a predictable behavior, if one paid attention. Imran moved with precision, intercepting the intruder from above before any entry could be made. The struggle was quick, decisive, and effective. Aram watched, absorbing the lesson. Courage alone was insufficient. Knowledge, preparation, and timing were equally crucial. Hours passed with tense vigilance, the intruders attempting multiple points of infiltration, each repelled with coordinated precision. Aram's confidence grew, tempered with awareness. He had seen danger, observed patterns, and acted decisively under pressure. The red lunchbox on the table felt heavier now, not just a symbol of courage, but a talisman of experience and learning. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, the intruders retreated, their infiltration attempts unsuccessful. Aram exhaled slowly, tension easing slightly, though he remained alert. He had witnessed strategy, patience, and persistence, and he had survived, learned, and acted. Imran crouched beside him, eyes steady. "You've done well, Aram. Tonight, they tested our defenses in ways they hadn't before. You observed, you learned, and you remained calm under pressure. That is the essence of courage. Not absence of fear, but the ability to act wisely despite it." Aram nodded slowly, feeling the weight of the night's lessons settle within him. Fear had been constant, threatening, and palpable, but he had learned to transform it into focus, vigilance, and decisive action. He realized that courage was continuous, a choice repeated under pressure, refined with experience. Outside, the city seemed quiet once more, the intruders having retreated into the shadows. But both father and son knew this was temporary. The battle was far from over. The intruders were patient, calculating, and relentless. And each attempt, each probe, each infiltration was a test, a warning that the next encounter would be even more dangerous. Aram glanced at the red lunchbox, understanding fully what it represented: courage, resilience, and the lessons of fear transformed into action. He had faced the first real test of infiltration, and he had survived, strengthened, and learned. Tomorrow, Imran said quietly, they may come again, with new tactics, more coordinated, more relentless. But remember this: courage is not a single act. It is preparation, vigilance, observation, and decisive action. And you've proven that you have all of these within you. Aram nodded, a quiet determination settling over him. He knew that the challenges ahead would demand every ounce of courage, intelligence, and resilience he possessed. But for the first time, he felt a growing confidence, a belief that fear could be managed, that courage could guide action, and that together, he and his father could face whatever shadows lay ahead. Could the intruders breach their defenses next time? Would Aram and his father act with the same courage and wisdom? And when the next infiltration came, would the boy with the red lunchbox stand strong, or would the shadows finally find a weakness? The night stretched on, heavy with anticipation, shadows crawling, and the knowledge that vigilance, courage, and wisdom were the only shields against the relentless threats waiting outside. The city had settled into a false calm once again, the hum of distant traffic and the occasional barking dog providing a veneer of normalcy that barely masked the tension inside the apartment. Aram sat cross-legged on the floor, red lunchbox beside him, eyes focused but restless. His small hands drummed nervously against his knees as he tried to replay the events of the last infiltration attempt in his mind. The intruders hadn't just tested doors, windows, or balconies, they had probed patience, assessed reactions, and challenged resolve. And tonight, he knew, they would attempt something even more insidious: mind games. Imran moved quietly through the apartment, his sharp eyes catching every shadow and flicker of movement outside. He paused at the window, scanning the street below with practiced precision. "Aram," he said softly, crouching beside his son, "tonight, it won't just be about physical intrusion. They'll try to manipulate, to confuse, to provoke. Their goal is to break focus, to instill fear, and to make us act without thought. You've learned patience, courage, and observation. Now we must add another layer: mental strength." Aram swallowed hard, nodding. "Mental strength?" he asked, voice tight. "Like, not getting scared?" "Yes," Imran said with a small nod. "But more than that. It's about understanding that fear can be manipulated, and the intruders will try. You must remain aware, calm, and decisive, no matter what they do. This is a test of your mind as well as your courage." The night deepened, shadows stretching across the apartment like fingers of darkness reaching for them. A faint tapping came at the front door, rhythmic and deliberate. Aram stiffened, instinctively gripping the lunchbox. "They're starting," he whispered. Imran crouched beside him, eyes sharp. "Watch carefully. Do not react impulsively. Observe, think, and then act." The tapping grew louder, punctuated by a soft, mechanical hum. Then came a voice, distorted, metallic, echoing through the apartment. "Aram Malik, we know you're there. We know what you fear. Open the door, or face consequences." Aram's heart hammered. The voice was chilling, unfamiliar, and manipulative. The intruders were no longer relying solely on physical threats, they were attempting psychological intimidation, designed to provoke fear and force a mistake. "Dad, what do we do?" Aram asked, trembling slightly. "We observe," Imran said firmly. "Do not react to the words. They are trying to manipulate you. Courage is not just action, it is control over your mind. Remember the lessons. Breathe, observe, and act decisively." Hours passed with tense vigilance. The intruders used every trick to unsettle them: whispers outside windows, faint scratching on walls, even placing objects in the hallway designed to startle. Each attempt was carefully calculated, designed to instill doubt, fear, and confusion. Aram's small body tensed with every sound, yet he forced himself to remain calm, recalling each lesson his father had taught him. At one point, a faint note slid under the apartment door. Aram picked it up with trembling hands. The message was simple but unnerving: "You are alone. No one can protect you. One mistake, and it's over." He looked at his father, fear and uncertainty flickering in his eyes. "Dad, they're trying to make me feel alone. They're trying to scare me." Imran nodded slowly, eyes calm but intense. "Exactly. And that is why you must not react. Courage is not absence of fear, it is acting wisely despite it. You are not alone, Aram. I am here, and we face this together. Their words have power only if you let them." Aram took a deep breath, gripping the lunchbox. The weight of it felt grounding, a tangible reminder of resilience and courage. He realized that the intruder's true strength lay in fear, both physical and mental, and that he had already begun to counter it through awareness and control. The night wore on, and the intruders escalated further. A faint flickering of lights outside created shadows that danced unnaturally across the walls, an attempt to disorient. Faint footsteps echoed down the hallways, calculated but unseen. Aram's senses sharpened. He noticed patterns, the timing between each sound, the subtle pauses, the faint signals that revealed where the intruders were positioned. Observation became his weapon, and the lunchbox a symbol of steadfast courage amidst the psychological assault. Then came the most unnerving moment: the intercom crackled to life, distorting the voice of a familiar neighbor. "Aram, open the door, it's me. I need help." Aram froze, gripping the lunchbox tightly. He could see the shadowed figure outside through the peephole, it resembled someone he knew. His mind raced, uncertainty pressing in. Was it truly a neighbor, or a trick? His father's hand rested on his shoulder, firm, grounding. "Don't act yet," Imran whispered. "Observe. Ask questions. Verify. Courage is measured in careful, precise action, not reaction to manipulation." Aram swallowed hard and spoke into the intercom, steadying his voice. "Who is it? What's happening?" The voice hesitated, faint distortion giving a flicker of doubt. It repeated the plea: "It's me, you have to open the door." Imran motioned subtly, eyes sharp. "See? Hesitation. Fear and doubt are their tools. Courage is not opening the door blindly. Verify, act with precision, and maintain control." Aram realized that the intruders were attempting to exploit his empathy, his desire to help, to manipulate him into making a dangerous choice. His heart hammered, but clarity emerged. He was not alone. His father was beside him. Courage was in measured, intelligent action, not reaction to fear or trickery. With careful steps, Aram peered through the peephole and recognized the figure outside, not the neighbor, but an intruder disguised in shadows. His pulse raced, but he didn't panic. Instead, he lifted the lunchbox and positioned himself behind a sturdy chair, ready to act if necessary. Imran moved silently, intercepting the intruder with precision, neutralizing the threat before it could escalate. The psychological assault had been countered, the trap avoided, and Aram had remained calm, observant, and decisive. The intruders had failed in their attempt to manipulate him, and the lesson was clear: courage was mental as well as physical. Hours later, the city seemed quiet once more. The intruders had retreated, but the psychological battle had left its mark. Aram felt both exhaustion and empowerment. He had faced fear, manipulation, and uncertainty and survived, learning that courage extended beyond action into awareness, mental fortitude, and trust. "Dad," Aram whispered, voice trembling yet determined. "I understand now. Courage, it's more than swinging the lunchbox or standing up to them. It's about thinking, observing, staying calm, and choosing wisely." Imran nodded, eyes proud yet serious. "Exactly. You've learned an essential truth tonight. Fear can be manipulated, shadows can deceive, but courage paired with wisdom is stronger than any trick. Remember this, Aram. Every night, every challenge, every threat is an opportunity to strengthen yourself. You have shown growth, patience, and bravery. And that will guide us in whatever comes next." Outside, the city remained unaware of the small apartment where a boy had faced relentless psychological warfare, maintained calm, and emerged stronger. The red lunchbox rested beside him, a symbol not only of physical courage but of mental resilience, observation, and wisdom under pressure. The night stretched into dawn, and Aram understood that the lessons learned tonight would carry far beyond the intruder's tactics. Fear could be confronted, manipulated attempts resisted, and courage could be sustained when paired with knowledge, patience, and calculated action. Would the intruders return with even more cunning tactics? Could Aram and his father continue to outsmart and outlast them? And when the shadows came again, would the boy with the red lunchbox be ready to face both fear and manipulation with wisdom, courage, and resilience? The city slept, unaware, while inside the apartment, father and son prepared, observed, and grew stronger, ready for whatever darkness the intruders might send next. The city slept under a blanket of darkness, the streets quiet, the occasional flicker of a streetlight casting long shadows on walls and sidewalks. But in the small apartment where Aram and his father stayed, the night was far from peaceful. The calm was deceptive, a fragile illusion that masked the gathering storm outside. Aram sat cross-legged on the couch, red lunchbox on his lap, every muscle tense, senses alert to the faintest sound. He had learned from the past nights, fear was ever present, but courage, vigilance, and decisive action could transform it into strength. Imran moved silently around the apartment, checking every lock, every window, every door with meticulous precision. "Tonight," he whispered, crouching beside Aram, "they will combine all their tactics. Physical intrusion, psychological manipulation, and timing. Their goal is to overwhelm us, to test our courage and endurance. Are you ready, Aram?" Aram nodded, gripping the lunchbox tightly. "I think so, Dad," he whispered. "I'm ready to face whatever they try." Imran's eyes narrowed. "Remember, observe first, act decisively second. Courage is knowing when and how to act, not just rushing in blindly." Hours passed with tense vigilance. The night was heavy, each sound amplified, the soft rustle of a curtain, the creak of a floorboard, the distant hum of a passing car. Aram's senses were sharpened to every detail. He had learned to notice the subtleties, the timing of footsteps, the shifts in shadows, the faint patterns that revealed the intruders' positions. Then, a faint click from the balcony door jolted him upright. A shadow moved outside, deliberate and calculated. Imran reacted instantly, intercepting the intruder before any breach could occur. Aram's small body tensed, ready to act if necessary, lunchbox raised as a shield. The intruder stumbled back, but the movement was only the beginning. From the street below, another shadow approached the entrance. The intruders had returned with coordination, combining tactics learned from previous failures. Their intent was clear: overwhelm, confuse, and break the defenses of the apartment through simultaneous assaults. "Stay calm, Aram," Imran whispered. "They're testing boundaries. Courage is not just action, it's precision under pressure. Observe, anticipate, act when necessary." The intruders escalated quickly. Faint tapping at the windows, shadowy figures moving outside, and distant noises designed to distract and provoke fear all occurred simultaneously. Aram felt adrenaline surge through him, heart pounding. This was no longer a simple test, it was a full-scale, coordinated assault. One intruder attempted to slip in through the front door, while another moved across the balcony. Aram lifted the red lunchbox, swinging it with precision to disrupt one intruder while his father intercepted the other. The sound of impact, the shifting shadows, and the muffled struggle filled the apartment with tension. Aram realized that every action mattered: timing, strength, observation, and courage combined into a single, decisive moment. The intruders tried to regroup, signaling each other with subtle gestures. Their attack was methodical, relentless, designed to exploit fear, hesitation, and inexperience. But Aram had learned over the past nights. Observation had become instinct. Courage had become discipline. Every movement he made was calculated, precise, and effective. A loud crash echoed from the balcony as one intruder attempted a more aggressive approach. Imran intercepted, moving with calm precision, while Aram swung the lunchbox again, striking the intruder back. The coordinated defense of father and son forced the attackers to retreat temporarily, reassessing their strategy. Aram's chest heaved with adrenaline, the red lunchbox heavy in his hands. He realized something profound: courage was not just fearlessness, but understanding the moment, making the right choice, and acting decisively. Fear was real, ever present, but it no longer dictated his actions. The intruders attempted another tactic: a faint, distorted voice over the intercom, claiming to be a neighbor in distress. Aram froze, heart racing, but remembered his father's lessons: verify, observe, and act decisively. He cautiously spoke into the intercom, and the hesitation in the voice gave him the clue he needed: it was a trick. With his father ready beside him, Aram stayed calm, observing patterns, and prepared for the next move. Hours of relentless psychological and physical assault left both father and son exhausted, yet resolute. They had faced shadows, manipulation, and coordinated attacks, and survived. The apartment, though battered by the chaos, remained secure. The red lunchbox lay on the table, a silent emblem of courage, resilience, and the growth of a young boy who had learned to face fear head-on. Finally, the intruders retreated into the darkness, their tactics foiled but their presence still looming. Outside, the night remained quiet, but Aram and Imran knew it was only a temporary reprieve. The attackers were patient, relentless, and ever strategic. "Dad," Aram whispered, trembling with exhaustion but also a newfound confidence. "We did it. We survived." "Yes," Imran said, crouching beside him. "And you've grown. Courage isn't about never being afraid, it's about acting wisely despite fear. Tonight, you learned that in the face of overwhelming danger, observation, preparation, and decisive action are your greatest weapons." Aram looked at the red lunchbox, understanding fully what it represented. Not just a childhood object, but a symbol of resilience, bravery, and the ability to act under pressure. He felt a strange mixture of exhaustion, relief, and empowerment. Outside, the city slept, unaware of the battle waged in the small apartment. The shadows confronted, the intruders repelled, and the courage of a boy and his father tested and proven. But both knew this was only the beginning. The intruders had retreated tonight, but tomorrow would bring new challenges, more calculated strategies, and tests of courage and intelligence unlike any before. And when they returned, father and son would have to be ready, not just with strength, but with the wisdom, observation, and courage that had been honed over nights of relentless trials. Would the intruders return with more cunning, more force, more deception? Could Aram and his father withstand the next wave of relentless attacks? And when the shadows returned, would the boy with the red lunchbox be ready to face fear, deception, and danger with the courage and intelligence he had cultivated? The city remained quiet under the night sky, oblivious, while inside the apartment, a father and son prepared for the inevitable next assault, their bond strengthened, their courage sharpened, and their resolve unwavering. The night was heavy and silent, the kind of silence that presses against the ears and makes shadows seem alive. Aram lay on the couch, red lunchbox clutched to his chest, mind alert despite exhaustion. Each night had tested him more than the last: first intrusions, then infiltration, psychological tactics, and coordinated assaults. Yet, tonight felt different. The air itself seemed charged with anticipation, an invisible tension creeping into every corner of the apartment. Imran moved silently along the walls, checking every window and lock with meticulous precision. "Tonight," he whispered, crouching beside Aram, "they will attempt a direct ambush inside the building. They've tested the exterior. Now they will try to catch us unprepared, to trap us where movement is limited. Every choice we make will matter. Are you ready?" Aram nodded, gripping the lunchbox tighter. "I I think so, Dad. I'm ready to help. Yes, Imran said softly. And remember, courage is not just about action, it's about observation, anticipation, and knowing when to act. Hours passed in tense vigilance. Every creak of the floorboard, every faint shadow passing under the door, heightened their senses. Aram had learned to distinguish between ordinary city noises and the subtle signs of intruders. His mind had become a scanner, cataloging every detail, every pattern, every possible threat. Then, from the stairwell below, came the first sound, a faint, calculated footstep, deliberate and quiet. Imran's eyes narrowed. "They're inside," he whispered. "Stay low, observe, and be ready to act." Aram's heart pounded, but he obeyed, crouching behind the couch with the red lunchbox ready. The intruder advanced cautiously, testing for defenses, scanning for weaknesses. It was the first time Aram faced danger within the walls of the building itself, a psychological pressure heavier than any assault from outside. Suddenly, a second shadow appeared from the hallway. The intruders had coordinated a two-pronged approach. Aram froze, fear and adrenaline colliding, but he remembered his father's lessons. Courage is not absence of fear, it is action under pressure. Imran moved swiftly, intercepting the first intruder while signaling Aram. "Now," he whispered. Aram swung the lunchbox with precise force, striking the second intruder and creating a momentary opening. The sound of impact echoed through the narrow hallway, startling the intruders and forcing them to retreat slightly. The ambush was escalating. From the stairwell, another figure attempted to advance. Imran intercepted with quick, efficient movements, while Aram maintained a defensive position, ready to act if needed. Each movement required concentration, timing, and courage. The slightest mistake could be catastrophic. The intruders regrouped, their shadows moving with coordinated precision, testing the father and son once more. They tried psychological tactics, faint whispers, manipulation, even leaving notes with threats. But Aram had learned to resist manipulation, to observe patterns, and to act decisively. Fear no longer controlled him, courage guided his actions. Suddenly, a shadow moved toward the kitchen, attempting to flank their position. Aram reacted instinctively, swinging the lunchbox with precision, striking the intruder before he could reach the corner. Imran intercepted another approaching figure, their movements synchronized, coordinated like a well-rehearsed dance of danger. Aram's chest heaved, his body trembling with adrenaline and fear. Yet, in the chaos, he felt a strange surge of confidence. He had faced intrusions, infiltration, psychological manipulation, and coordinated assaults. Now, he was part of a team with his father, an unbroken unit of courage, observation, and decisive action. Hours passed with relentless pressure. The intruders attempted multiple points of entry within the building, testing every corner, every blind spot. Aram and Imran moved with careful precision, countering every attempt with intelligence, skill, and courage. Each encounter reinforced the lessons: fear could be managed, observation was a weapon, and decisive action could turn the tide. Then, the intruders attempted their boldest tactic yet, a coordinated strike aimed at isolating Aram. One shadow advanced from the stairwell, another from the hallway, and a third from the kitchen. They were attempting to divide and conquer, exploiting the boy's size and the limitations of the apartment space. Imran acted instantly, intercepting the first intruder while signaling Aram. "Aram, remember your training. Observe, wait for the right moment." Aram's heart raced, sweat dripping from his forehead, but he focused. The intruder from the hallway lunged toward him. He lifted the red lunchbox, swinging it with precise force, striking the intruder back and forcing him to stumble. Imran neutralized the third intruder in a fluid, calculated motion. Together, father and son maintained their defense, turning the ambush into a demonstration of coordinated courage and skill. The intruders eventually retreated, leaving the apartment battered but secure. The ambush had been intense, testing both physical and mental resilience, but father and son had prevailed. Aram sat on the couch, red lunchbox beside him, body trembling from exhaustion and adrenaline. He had faced fear, manipulation, and relentless physical assault and survived. "Dad," he whispered, voice shaking but determined. We did it. I didn't run." "Yes," Imran said softly, crouching beside him. And that is the essence of courage. Courage is not the absence of fear, it is action despite fear, guided by observation, preparation, and decisive choice. Tonight, you've proven that you can face overwhelming danger and act wisely. Aram looked at the red lunchbox, understanding fully its significance. It was no longer just a childhood object, it was a symbol of resilience, courage, and the ability to act under pressure. He felt exhaustion, relief, and a growing confidence that came from surviving and learning from relentless trials. Outside, the city remained unaware of the battle waged within the walls of the apartment. Shadows had been confronted, intruders repelled, and courage tested to its limits. Yet, both father and son knew that this was not the end. The intruders would return, with new tactics, greater coordination, and more devious strategies. Would they find a weakness next time? Could Aram and his father continue to outsmart, resist, and act decisively under escalating pressure? And when the next ambush came, would the boy with the red lunchbox stand firm, ready to face fear, manipulation, and danger with courage, intelligence, and resilience? The night stretched onward, shadows lingering, and the weight of anticipation pressing down. Father and son remained vigilant, aware that every moment of rest could be temporary, every shadow a potential threat. But they had learned, adapted, and grown stronger, ready to face whatever darkness came next. The morning sunlight filtered weakly through the blinds, casting streaks of gold across the living room floor, but it did little to ease the tension that had gripped Aram and his father through the night. The previous ambush had left them exhausted yet vigilant. Every creak of the floorboard, every passing shadow reminded them that the intruders were patient, clever, and relentless. But today felt different. There was an almost palpable sense of calculation in the air, as though the intruders had learned from their failures and were planning something far more sinister. Aram sat on the couch, red lunchbox in his lap, hands gripping it tightly. His father moved silently around the apartment, checking locks, windows, and doors with meticulous care. "They won't give up easily," Imran said quietly, crouching beside him. "Their tactics will become smarter, more deceptive. Today, they might try to trick you, to lure you into making a single mistake. You must stay alert, think carefully, and trust your instincts." "I understand, Dad," Aram said, though his heart thudded with unease. He had faced intrusions, infiltration, psychological manipulation, and ambushes, but the idea of a trap, a cunning plan designed to exploit his trust, was frightening. Hours passed in tense anticipation. Aram's eyes constantly scanned the apartment and the street below. His small body tensed at every sound, every movement in the shadows. It was mid-afternoon when the first sign appeared, a small, neatly folded note slipped under the door. He picked it up cautiously, examining the message. It read simply, "Aram, we know your father is away for a moment. Come outside. We have something important to show you." His chest tightened. "Dad, they're trying to trick me," he whispered, eyes wide with fear. Imran's face was calm but serious. "Exactly. They're testing your judgment, your ability to resist manipulation. Courage is not just action, it's discernment. Do not fall into their trap. Observe, think, and act wisely." Aram nodded, swallowing hard. He had learned the intruders relied on manipulation, deceit, and psychological pressure. The note was clearly designed to provoke fear and curiosity, tempting him to act impulsively. He folded it carefully and placed it aside, refusing to be drawn into their game. The afternoon stretched on with tension mounting. Shadows outside the apartment moved subtly, faint sounds of footsteps and distant voices creating an atmosphere of unease. The intruders were patient, watching, waiting for a moment of weakness. Aram's mind raced, recalling every lesson from the past nights: patience, observation, courage, and decisive action. Then came the next move, a faint knock at the window. A figure appeared, partially obscured by shadows. Aram's pulse quickened. It was someone he vaguely recognized from the neighborhood, calling out softly, "Aram, it's okay. Just come outside." He froze, recognizing the tactic. The intruders were using deception to manipulate trust, exploiting his empathy and curiosity. His hands shook, clutching the lunchbox like a lifeline. "Dad, they're tricking me again," he whispered. Imran crouched beside him, voice steady and firm. Do not respond. Observe. Verify. Courage is acting wisely, not reacting to fear or deception. You are not alone, remember that. We face this together. The intruder outside persisted, knocking and calling out, but Aram remained steadfast, observing from behind the window. He noticed subtle inconsistencies, the voice was slightly distorted, the shadow did not move naturally, and the timing of knocks was irregular. Observation revealed the deception, and he realized the intruders were setting a trap designed to separate him from his father. Hours passed with careful vigilance. The intruders escalated their tactics, using multiple points of deception, notes under doors, shadowed figures, distant voices, and even faint, false cries for help. Aram stayed alert, discerning truth from manipulation, refusing to act impulsively. The red lunchbox remained at his side, a symbol of courage and a tangible reminder of the lessons he had learned. Late in the evening, the intruders attempted a more daring strategy. A shadow moved along the stairwell, appearing to leave something for Aram, a small package. He approached cautiously, eyes scanning for traps. Imran followed silently, hand on his son's shoulder. Observe, Aram, he whispered. Caution now is your ally. Aram examined the package carefully. It appeared harmless, but his instincts told him otherwise. The intruders had learned from their failures, they were baiting him. He remembered every lesson, courage combined with wisdom, observation paired with patience. He refused to take the bait, keeping both himself and the apartment secure. Suddenly, a faint metallic click echoed from the hallway. The intruders were testing a new point of entry, attempting to create chaos while distracting him with the package. Aram's heart raced, but he stayed focused. His eyes scanned patterns, movement, and timing, anticipating their next move. Dad, they're trying to get inside while distracting me, he whispered. Yes, Imran said, voice calm but commanding. And this is where courage and wisdom meet. You act decisively when the moment is right, not when fear pushes you. Aram's muscles tensed. He lifted the red lunchbox and positioned himself behind a sturdy chair, ready to act. When the intruder attempted to force the hallway door, Imran intercepted with swift precision, neutralizing the threat before it could escalate. The deception had failed, and the trap had been avoided. Exhausted but resolute, Aram sank to the couch, the red lunchbox still clutched to his chest. He realized something profound. Courage was not just facing visible threats, it was resisting manipulation, discerning truth from deception, and acting wisely under pressure. He had resisted the intruder's most cunning plan yet, a trap designed to exploit fear, trust, and curiosity. Outside, the intruders regrouped, their shadows moving silently in the fading light. They had failed again, but the pattern was clear: persistence, patience, and increasingly devious strategies. Aram and his father had prevailed this time, but they knew the intruders were learning, adapting, and planning further attacks. Dad, Aram whispered, voice shaking but determined. I understand now. Courage isn't just about swinging the lunchbox or standing up to them. It's about thinking, observing, resisting manipulation, and acting wisely. Imran nodded, eyes proud yet serious. Exactly. You've learned one of the most important lessons tonight. Fear can be manipulated, deception can test judgment, but courage paired with wisdom is unbreakable. Remember this, Aram. Every challenge is an opportunity to grow stronger. The city outside remained unaware of the cunning trap that had been set and foiled. Shadows had been confronted, deception exposed, and courage tested to its limits. But both father and son knew this was far from over. The intruders were patient, adaptive, and relentless, and tomorrow would bring new challenges. Would the next trap be even more cunning? Could Aram and his father continue to resist deception while defending themselves from escalating threats? And when the intruders return, would the boy with the red lunchbox remain steadfast, ready to face fear, manipulation, and danger with courage, wisdom, and resilience? The sun was climbing steadily, flooding the streets with sharp, blinding light, but the warmth of day did nothing to soothe the tension in the small apartment. Aram sat near the window, red lunchbox on his lap, eyes scanning the street below with practiced vigilance. The intruders had tested him through the night, through deception, ambushes, and traps, but now, it seemed, they had chosen a bold new strategy, a full-scale daylight attack designed to overwhelm and disorient. Imran moved quietly behind him, eyes narrowing as he scanned every potential approach. "Aram," he whispered, crouching beside his son, "they've adapted. They know we expect darkness and shadows. Now they will strike in daylight, using speed, coordination, and multiple tactics at once. This will test everything you've learned: the courage to act, the observation to see through deception, and the wisdom to choose the right moment." Aram swallowed hard, gripping the lunchbox with white-knuckled intensity. I'm ready, Dad. I think I am. "Yes," Imran said, voice calm but firm. "But remember, courage is not about rushing into danger. It's about patience, observation, and precise action. Use everything you've learned." Hours passed as the tension mounted. Every sound outside the apartment, the hum of a car engine, the footsteps of pedestrians, the distant chatter of neighbors, was analyzed for patterns, for signs of threat. Aram had become a master of observation, noticing details that most adults would miss: a shadow lingering too long, a movement out of sync with the rest, a subtle distortion of normal sounds. Then it began, a sudden burst of coordinated motion. A figure darted across the street, another approached the building's side entrance, while a third appeared near the front door. The intruders had chosen to attack simultaneously, exploiting daylight and visibility to create confusion, distraction, and fear. "Stay calm, Aram," Imran whispered, crouching beside him. "Observe first, act second. Courage is precise, not reckless." Aram's heart pounded, but his eyes were sharp. He noticed the rhythm of the intruders' movements, the timing between them, and the patterns in their coordination. Each step, each gesture, each signal revealed their plan if he paid attention. His mind raced, analyzing and anticipating their actions. A shadow appeared at the front door, attempting to force entry. Aram reacted instinctively, swinging the red lunchbox with controlled force to intercept the intruder's path. The sound of impact echoed sharply through the building, startling the attackers and giving Imran the opportunity to intercept the intruder approaching from the side. The daylight strike was relentless. From the balcony, another figure attempted to enter while others created distractions inside the building. Aram's senses were on high alert. Every move required precision, timing, and courage. One false step could have disastrous consequences. "Dad, there are too many of them," Aram whispered, anxiety and adrenaline coursing through him. "Yes," Imran said calmly, eyes scanning the street. "That's why observation is key. Focus on one action at a time. Courage is acting wisely, not panicking. Remember your lessons." Aram took a deep breath, calming his racing heart. He focused on one intruder at a time, predicting movements, intercepting with the lunchbox when necessary, and coordinating silently with his father. The red lunchbox had become an extension of his courage, a tangible reminder of his strength and growth. The intruders escalated their tactics further, attempting to isolate Aram and create openings. One intruder moved toward the stairwell, another toward the back hallway, while a third tried to create a distraction with a loud crash near the kitchen. Aram's heart raced, but he remained calm, using observation to anticipate each movement. He struck with precision, blocking one intruder while his father intercepted the others. Hours of relentless daylight assault pushed both father and son to their physical and mental limits. Sweat dripped from Aram's forehead, his muscles ached, but his determination did not waver. Each successful interception reinforced his confidence, and each lesson learned in the shadows now proved invaluable under the harsh glare of daylight. At one point, a figure attempted to feign retreat, a common tactic to lure them into a trap. Aram's pulse quickened, but he paused, remembering his father's guidance: courage is not acting impulsively. He observed patterns, anticipated the true movement, and acted decisively to neutralize the threat. The intruder stumbled, revealing the deception, and Aram realized that patience and awareness were just as critical as strength and speed. The intruders regrouped outside, clearly frustrated by their inability to breach the apartment or outmaneuver the father and son. Their daylight attack had been bold, coordinated, and ruthless, but Aram's observation, courage, and precise actions, combined with his father's experience, had foiled the assault. Breathing heavily, Aram sank to the couch, red lunchbox still in his hands. The sunlight streaming through the windows now felt like a symbol of triumph, a stark contrast to the shadows that had dominated their nights. He had survived the daylight strike, learned to manage fear under pressure, and applied every lesson with precision. "Dad," he whispered, exhaustion and pride mingling in his voice. I think I understand now. Courage isn't just about facing darkness, it's about seeing clearly, staying focused, and acting wisely even when the world is bright and full of distractions." Imran nodded, crouching beside him, eyes proud but serious. "Exactly. You've learned one of the most important truths: courage is not limited to the night or shadows. It is a constant choice, in any situation, under any conditions. Today, you proved that you can face overwhelming danger with observation, wisdom, and decisive action." Outside, the intruders retreated, disappearing into the bustling streets, but both father and son knew this was only a temporary reprieve. They had survived the daylight strike, but the intruders were patient, cunning, and adaptive. New challenges would come, testing courage, observation, and wisdom in ways they could not yet imagine. Would the intruders return with an even more daring plan? Could Aram and his father continue to anticipate, resist, and act decisively under escalating pressure? And when the next assault comes, daylight, night, or deception, would the boy with the red lunchbox remain steadfast, ready to face fear, confusion, and danger with courage, intelligence, and resilience? The city moved around them, oblivious to the relentless battles fought within the apartment. Shadows had been confronted, daylight assaults repelled, and courage tested to its limits. And as father and son prepared for the inevitable next challenge, the red lunchbox remained on the table, a symbol of strength, vigilance, and the enduring power of courage in the face of unrelenting danger. The city's early evening lights flickered on, casting long, trembling shadows across the quiet streets. The apartment felt smaller, almost suffocating, as Aram and his father prepared for what they knew would be the most relentless attack yet. The intruders were no longer testing, they were committing. Their patience had run thin, their tactics had escalated from subtle infiltration and deception to a coordinated siege. Every night, every daylight strike, every ambush had been a precursor, a lesson in preparation for this ultimate confrontation. Aram sat on the couch, the red lunchbox on his lap like an extension of himself. His hands trembled slightly, not with fear, but anticipation. He had grown, adapted, and learned the meaning of courage through the trials, but the idea of a full-scale siege brought a new kind of pressure. Every sense was alert, every muscle tensed. Imran moved silently around the apartment, checking locks, scanning every potential approach, and listening for subtle signs outside. "Tonight, Aram," he whispered, crouching beside him, "we face a siege. They will test our endurance, our observation, and our ability to act decisively under constant pressure. This will not be quick. This will be a test of everything you've learned. Are you ready?" Aram nodded, swallowing hard, feeling a strange mixture of fear and determination. I'm ready, Dad. I'll stay focused." "Yes," Imran said, voice calm yet firm. "Remember, courage is not absence of fear, it is sustained action in the face of fear. Observation, patience, precision, these are your tools tonight." Hours passed intense vigilance as shadows moved outside the apartment, subtle but deliberate. The intruders had chosen to surround the building, isolating Aram and his father from any easy escape. Their methods had become surgical, combining deception, psychological manipulation, and physical intimidation. The siege was designed to wear them down, to exploit fatigue, and to force a critical mistake. Then the first move came, a shadow darted across the balcony. Aram reacted instinctively, lifting the lunchbox to block, striking with precise force. Imran intercepted another approaching figure at the front door. The sounds of struggle, the shifting shadows, and the distant mechanical clicks of attempted entry filled the apartment with tension, pressing against every nerve. "Dad, they're everywhere," Aram whispered, eyes wide, scanning the flurry of movement outside. "Yes," Imran said quietly. "That's why observation is key. Focus, act decisively, and do not panic. Courage is choosing the right moment, not reacting blindly." The intruders escalated further. From multiple directions, they attempted simultaneous breaches, stairs, windows, and the front entrance. Aram and his father moved as one, coordinated and precise. The red lunchbox became both a shield and a tool, an emblem of courage and a means of defense. Every movement mattered. Every second counted. Hours of relentless siege tested their endurance. Aram's muscles ached, his hands blistered from gripping the lunchbox, and fatigue pressed against every thought. Yet, his mind remained sharp, scanning patterns, noting timing, and predicting intruder movements. He realized the siege was not just physical, it was psychological, a test of patience, observation, and sustained courage. At one point, the intruders attempted a new tactic. A shadow moved across the stairwell, seemingly retreating, while another figure made a feint toward the kitchen. It was a trap designed to isolate and confuse. Aram's pulse quickened, but he paused, recalling his father's lessons. Patience and observation were as important as courage. He waited for the intruder to reveal the true motion, then acted decisively, swinging the lunchbox with precision and intercepting the figure before the trap could succeed. Imran's movements were a mirror of his son's, calm, precise, and coordinated. Together, they transformed the siege from chaos into a disciplined defense, forcing the intruders to retreat temporarily and regroup. The apartment, though battered and tense, remained secure. But the siege was not over. The intruders' persistence was relentless. They had learned from every failed attempt, every thwarted strategy. They adapted, using speed, shadows, and psychological tactics to force mistakes. Aram's endurance was tested like never before. Every sound, every shadow, every faint movement outside became a potential threat. His mind raced, muscles ached, but he remained focused, gripping the red lunchbox as both a symbol and a weapon. Hours melted into the night. The city around them slept, oblivious to the siege unfolding in the small apartment. Father and son maintained vigilance, coordinating silently, observing patterns, and striking decisively when necessary. Each successful interception reinforced their confidence. Each lesson from previous nights, deception, ambush, daylight attacks, was now applied with precision. At one point, a shadow appeared near the balcony, attempting to create a distraction. Aram's instincts told him it was a feint. He waited, observing the timing and movement carefully. As expected, another intruder attempted entry through the side hallway. Aram acted decisively, intercepting the intruder with a swing of the lunchbox, while Imran neutralized the one on the balcony. Coordination, observation, and courage had turned the siege into a controlled defense. Exhaustion pressed down, yet Aram realized something profound. Courage was not a momentary act, nor a reaction to fear, it was endurance, sustained vigilance, and decisive action under pressure. The siege had tested every aspect of his growth, and he had endured, adapting, and applying lessons with precision. Outside, the intruders retreated into the night once more. They had failed to breach the apartment, but both Aram and his father knew this was only temporary. The siege had revealed the intruders' patience, cunning, and willingness to escalate. New strategies, more aggressive tactics, and perhaps an even more cunning assault awaited. "Dad," Aram whispered, trembling with fatigue yet filled with quiet pride, I understand now. Courage, it's not just about defending in a moment. It's about lasting, enduring, and staying wise no matter how long or hard it gets." Imran smiled, crouching beside him. "Exactly. You've learned the ultimate lesson of this siege. Courage is endurance, observation, patience, and decisive action combined. Tonight, you've proven that no matter the challenge, no matter the pressure, you can face it with wisdom and bravery." The city remained unaware of the siege that had unfolded within the small apartment. Shadows had been confronted, coordinated attacks repelled, and courage tested like never before. Father and son, though exhausted, were stronger, wiser, and more united than ever. The red lunchbox remained on the table, a symbol of resilience, courage, and the enduring power of wisdom in the face of relentless danger. Would the intruders return with an even more daring, ruthless plan? Could Aram and his father continue to endure, observe, and act decisively under unrelenting pressure? And when the next assault comes, would the boy with the red lunchbox maintain courage, resilience, and intelligence, standing firm no matter the challenge? The apartment felt unusually still that evening, a deceptive calm after the relentless siege of previous nights. Aram sat near the window, the red lunchbox on his lap, eyes scanning the dimming streets below with unrelenting vigilance. His muscles ached, his body exhausted, but his mind remained alert. Every shadow seemed to linger longer than natural, every whisper of movement outside a potential threat. He had survived ambushes, traps, daylight strikes, and a full-scale siege, but tonight, it seemed, the intruders had chosen a new weapon, deception that cut closer than any physical attack ever could. Imran moved silently along the walls, checking locks and peering into corners with his usual precision. "Aram," he whispered, crouching beside his son, "they've realized they cannot defeat us through force alone. Their next strategy will target trust, your ability to distinguish friend from foe, truth from deception. This is a psychological battlefield. Are you ready?" Aram nodded slowly, gripping the lunchbox tighter. I think so, Dad. But it feels different this time. Scarier. Yes, Imran said, voice calm but firm. Because it is. Courage is not just facing danger, it's maintaining judgment when your mind is being tested. Your trust, your decisions, your instincts, all will be challenged tonight. Hours passed, each sound outside amplified, each shadow scrutinized. Then the first subtle move arrived, a familiar voice, soft and tentative, called from the hallway. "Aram, it's me. Don't be afraid." Aram froze, heart hammering. He recognized the voice, it was one of the neighbors who had helped before, but something about the tone felt off, forced. His instincts screamed that this was a trap. He glanced at his father, who had already moved quietly toward the door. "They're testing you," Imran whispered. "Do not respond impulsively. Observe, verify, and act decisively." Aram bit his lip, remembering every lesson he had learned: patience, observation, courage, and the ability to discern truth from manipulation. He did not open the door. Instead, he observed closely, noticing subtle inconsistencies, the cadence of the footsteps, the lack of natural movement, the slight distortion in the voice. It was a deception, a carefully crafted attempt to lure him into isolation. The intruders intensified their psychological tactics. From outside the window came faint tapping, like a rhythmic code, attempting to mimic familiar signals Aram had learned to trust. Simultaneously, a note appeared under the door, reading, "Your father has left. Come with me and everything will be safe." Aram's chest tightened. Fear surged, but he focused on observation. He noticed that the pattern of the knocks did not match the neighbor's usual rhythm, the note was too carefully folded, and the timing of the approach was suspicious. This was the intruder's most cunning attempt yet, designed to exploit his trust, his desire for safety, and his fear of losing his father. "Dad, they're trying to trick me again." They're using me," Aram whispered, voice trembling. "Yes," Imran said quietly, crouching beside him. "And that's why courage and wisdom must be combined. Trust your instincts. Verify everything. Do not act impulsively. This is the ultimate test of discernment." Hours dragged on with tension mounting. Every approach, every shadow, every faint sound became a potential trap. Aram's mind raced, analyzing, anticipating, and observing with relentless focus. The intruders were patient, calculating, and adaptive. Their psychological assault was designed to wear down mental resilience, to exploit the faintest crack in focus or judgment. Suddenly, a faint cry for help echoed from the stairwell, a voice claiming to be his father. "Aram, open the door. Help me." Aram froze, heart hammering. It was a cruel tactic, exploiting fear and loyalty. He clutched the lunchbox, recalling his father's lessons. Courage is not acting on fear, it is acting with clarity, precision, and wisdom. He stayed put, refusing to be lured into the trap. Imran moved silently to the door, listening carefully. "It's a trick," he whispered. "They know our patterns. They are using fear and trust to manipulate you. Courage now is patience, observation, and restraint. We do not act until we are certain." Minutes passed like hours. The intruders' tactics grew more desperate, creating illusions of vulnerability and urgency. Aram's muscles ached, his body screamed for movement, yet he remained calm. He had learned that impulsive action was exactly what the intruders wanted. Every moment of restraint, every act of observation, weakened their psychological assault. Then came a breakthrough. Aram noticed a subtle pattern in the cries, a delay too precise, a rhythm too mechanical. His eyes scanned the hallway and stairwell with meticulous care, noticing shadows moving in unnatural synchronization. It was not his father. It was a ruse. The intruder's deception had been exposed through observation and patience. "Dad. I see it now. It's them." "Not you," Aram whispered, voice trembling but resolute. "Yes," Imran said, crouching beside him. "And that is courage. Recognizing fear, deception, and manipulation, and acting with wisdom despite them. This is the true test of the mind and spirit." Aram rose, red lunchbox in hand, scanning the apartment with heightened awareness. He realized that this psychological assault was more dangerous than any physical attack. The intruders had adapted, attempting to break trust, exploit fear, and manipulate decisions. But the boy had learned, endured, and grown stronger. Hours of vigilance continued, with the intruders attempting subtle manipulations, faint noises, shadow movements, and deceptive signals. Aram observed, anticipated, and coordinated silently with his father. The siege of deception was relentless, testing mental endurance and courage more than physical strength. Finally, as midnight approached, the intruders withdrew, frustrated by their inability to manipulate, isolate, or trick the father and son. The apartment remained secure, the red lunchbox still clutched firmly by Aram, symbolizing not just courage, but discernment, patience, and mental resilience. "Dad," Aram whispered, exhaustion and relief mingling in his voice, I understand. Courage, it's not just facing danger. It's knowing when to act, when to wait, and when to trust your instincts. It's wisdom under pressure." Imran nodded, eyes proud but serious. "Exactly. This is the ultimate lesson. Physical strength and action are important, but the mind, discernment, and the courage to resist manipulation are just as vital. Tonight, you faced the intruder's most cunning tactic yet and prevailed." Outside, the city slept, unaware of the psychological battle that had unfolded within the apartment. Shadows had been confronted, deception exposed, and courage tested in a new, deeper way. But father and son knew this was not the end. The intruders were patient, adaptive, and relentless. Would the intruders attempt an even more cunning, ruthless plan next? Could Aram and his father continue to resist deception while defending themselves from escalating threats? And when the next psychological assault comes, would the boy with the red lunchbox stand firm, ready to face fear, manipulation, and danger with courage, intelligence, and unwavering resilience? The night had settled into a thick, uneasy quiet, the kind that pressed against the walls of the apartment like a living thing. Aram sat by the window, the red lunchbox in his lap, eyes scanning the dimly lit street below with the precision of a soldier. Fatigue clung to his muscles, but his mind remained razor-sharp. After nights of ambushes, traps, daylight strikes, a siege, and psychological deception, he knew the intruders would not stop. They were patient, cunning, and now, desperate. Imran crouched beside him, whispering instructions with calm authority. "Tonight, Aram, they will attempt everything at once. They will combine force, deception, and speed to create confusion. This will test your endurance, your judgment, and your courage like never before. Are you ready?" Aram swallowed hard, gripping the lunchbox tightly. I think I am, Dad. I'll do my best." "That's all anyone can ask," Imran said softly. "Remember, courage is not just action. It is observation, patience, and choosing the right moment to act." The hours passed with tense silence. The faint hum of the city outside became a background to the heavy anticipation in the apartment. Every creak, every shadow, every whisper of movement outside made Aram flinch, but he remained composed, alert, and ready. The intruders were preparing, calculating the perfect moment to strike, combining all the tactics they had used before. Then, without warning, the assault began. Shadows moved with lightning speed from multiple points, the stairwell, the windows, and even the balcony. Faint cries and deceptive voices attempted to lure Aram into false action. Notes were slipped under doors, faint mechanical clicks suggested breaching tools, and the atmosphere itself seemed to thrum with imminent danger. "Dad, it's too much." Aram whispered, chest pounding, eyes darting across every corner of the apartment. Yes, Imran said, voice calm but urgent. That's why we rely on observation, patience, and precise action. Focus on one threat at a time. Courage is deliberate, not reckless. Aram took a deep breath, steadying his trembling hands. He realized the intruders were using everything they had learned against him: physical force, psychological manipulation, and coordinated speed. Every lesson from previous nights, from ambushes to psychological deception, was now being tested in the crucible of the ultimate assault. A figure burst through the stairwell, moving with unexpected force. Aram reacted instinctively, lifting the red lunchbox and striking with precise timing. The intruder stumbled back, surprised by the boy's strength and focus. Another shadow lunged from the window, but Imran intercepted with fluid precision. Together, father and son moved as one, coordinated, anticipating, and striking with practiced efficiency. The intruders escalated further, attempting simultaneous strikes to divide their attention. One approached from the front door, another tried the side hallway, while a third attempted to lure Aram with a deceptive cry for help. The chaos was overwhelming, a storm of danger, fear, and manipulation. "Dad, they're everywhere. I can't keep track," Aram shouted, panic threatening to break his focus. "Focus, Aram," Imran snapped gently but firmly. "You know the lessons. Observe, anticipate, act decisively. One move at a time." Aram's mind raced, analyzing patterns, anticipating movements, and coordinating silently with his father. He swung the red lunchbox with precision, intercepting an intruder attempting to flank him. Imran neutralized the one at the side door, while Aram noticed a faint shadow moving toward the balcony. Acting instinctively, he struck again, forcing the intruder to retreat. Hours of relentless action pressed them to the edge of exhaustion. Muscles ached, sweat poured, and adrenaline surged, but both remained resolute. Aram had learned that courage was not the absence of fear, but sustained action under pressure, guided by observation, patience, and wisdom. The intruders, realizing their attacks had been countered at every turn, attempted their most cunning tactic yet, a coordinated psychological and physical maneuver designed to separate father and son. Deceptive voices, shadow movements, and feigned retreats were orchestrated to lure Aram into isolation. "Dad, they're trying to split us," Aram whispered, gripping the lunchbox tighter. "Yes," Imran said calmly, eyes narrowing. "And that's when courage must combine with wisdom. Do not act impulsively. We are strongest together. Observe, anticipate, and strike decisively when the moment is right." The intruders struck simultaneously from multiple points, creating chaos and confusion. Aram and Imran moved as one, intercepting attacks with fluid precision. Every swing of the lunchbox, every calculated movement, every subtle shift in position turned the tide of the assault. The intruders had thrown everything at them, and yet, father and son held firm. At one critical moment, an intruder feigned retreat toward the stairwell, while another attempted a forceful entry from the front. Aram's instincts screamed danger. He waited, observing patterns and timing carefully. As the feint moved forward, he struck decisively, intercepting the true threat and preventing the trap from succeeding. Imran neutralized the other intruder with swift, practiced precision. Exhausted, trembling, but resolute, Aram realized something profound: courage was not a single act of bravery. It was sustained endurance, careful observation, patience, and decisive action under pressure. Tonight, he had faced the ultimate test and survived, adapted, and grown stronger. The intruders, realizing the assault had failed, retreated into the shadows, disappearing into the night. The apartment was battered but secure. The city remained unaware of the final, desperate attack that had unfolded within the walls. Father and son, though physically and emotionally drained, were triumphant. The red lunchbox remained at Aram's side, a symbol not just of childhood, but of courage, resilience, and wisdom earned through relentless trials. "Dad," Aram whispered, voice trembling with exhaustion and relief, I think I understand now. Courage, it's not just about fighting or defending. It's about observing, waiting, and acting wisely even when the danger is overwhelming." Imran smiled, crouching beside him. "Exactly. You've learned the ultimate lesson: courage is endurance, observation, patience, and decisive action. Tonight, you faced the ultimate assault, and you prevailed. That is strength beyond physical ability, it is strength of mind, heart, and spirit. Outside, the city slept, oblivious to the storm that had raged within the small apartment. Shadows had been confronted, deception exposed, and courage tested to its limits. The intruders had been repelled, their ultimate plan foiled. The red lunchbox, once a simple object, had become a symbol of triumph, resilience, and the enduring power of courage. Would the intruders ever return? Could Aram and his father continue to stand firm against whatever schemes, assaults, or deceptions might come next? And when the final challenge comes, because Aram knew there would always be one, would the boy with the red lunchbox remain steadfast, ready to face danger with courage, intelligence, and an unbreakable spirit? The first light of dawn spilled through the blinds, painting the apartment in soft hues of gold and pink. The city outside slowly awoke, unaware of the nights filled with shadows, assaults, and relentless trials that had tested the courage of a young boy and his father. Aram sat near the window, the red lunchbox in his lap, his small hands steady despite exhaustion. His eyes, once wide with fear, now gleamed with quiet strength, the kind that comes from having faced relentless danger and emerged unbroken. Imran moved beside him, scanning the empty streets with a practiced eye. There were no intruders in sight. The sieges, the ambushes, the psychological manipulations, they had all failed. Father and son had endured every tactic, resisted every deception, and acted with courage, patience, and wisdom. For the first time in many nights, the apartment felt safe. Yet, the trials had left a mark on their bodies, their nerves, and their understanding of courage. "Dad," Aram whispered, voice low but firm, I think I finally understand. Courage isn't just about swinging a lunchbox or fighting. It's about seeing clearly, thinking carefully, staying calm, and acting at the right moment. It's everything we've done these nights." Imran nodded, pride shining in his eyes. "Exactly, Aram. Courage is not impulsive. It is endurance, observation, and decisive action. You've learned that in ways most people never will. You've faced fear, deception, and danger, and you've prevailed every time. That is true strength." Aram looked down at the red lunchbox, the object that had seemed ordinary when he first carried it to school, now transformed into a symbol of resilience, courage, and the growth he had achieved. "It's more than a lunchbox now," he said softly. "It's everything we stood for these nights." Imran placed a reassuring hand on his son's shoulder. "Yes, Aram. It is a reminder of what courage looks like: steadfastness, endurance, wisdom, and action when it is needed most. It's a lesson you will carry for the rest of your life." Outside, the city began to stir, children laughing on the streets, shopkeepers opening their doors, and the sun climbing higher into the sky. The world continued unaware of the trials, the dangers, and the courage that had unfolded in a single apartment. Yet for Aram and his father, the battles had transformed them forever. The intruders had retreated, no doubt regrouping, perhaps even planning future schemes. But their efforts had failed. Each ambush, each trap, each psychological manipulation had been countered with precision, patience, and courage. And most importantly, Aram had learned to trust his instincts, observe carefully, and act wisely, guided by his father's unwavering support and his own growing inner strength. Hours passed as father and son moved quietly around the apartment, restoring order, checking locks, and ensuring no lingering dangers remained. The tension that had gripped them for nights now began to ease, replaced by a profound sense of accomplishment and relief. The red lunchbox rested on the table, a silent testament to their trials, their endurance, and the courage that had guided them through each harrowing moment. "Dad," Aram said, his voice small but filled with newfound confidence, "do you think they'll ever stop trying?" Imran smiled gently, crouching to meet his son's gaze. "Perhaps not, Aram. Life will always present challenges, tests, and moments of fear. But the lessons you've learned: observation, patience, courage, and decisive action will carry you through anything. The intruders were simply one test of many. You've proven that you can face them, or any other challenge, and come out stronger." Aram nodded slowly, absorbing the words. For the first time in many nights, he felt safe, not because the danger had vanished, but because he understood how to face it. Courage was no longer a word he heard from his father, it was a living principle he carried in his heart, a skill forged through trials, patience, and endurance. As the morning sun climbed higher, Aram's thoughts drifted back to his school, to the laughter and teasing he had endured because of the red lunchbox. The memory of those cruel, mocking voices now seemed distant, almost insignificant, compared to the battles he had fought and won. What had once been a source of embarrassment had become a symbol of triumph, courage, and resilience. "I guess, maybe those kids didn't know," Aram said softly, "that this lunchbox, and me, we were stronger than they thought." Imran chuckled softly, pride radiating in his voice. "Yes, Aram. Sometimes, strength is invisible until it is tested. Those who mocked you never saw what you were capable of, but you did. You've learned that courage, endurance, and wisdom matter more than anyone's laughter or judgment. You've proven that in the hardest way possible." The day progressed with a quiet sense of reflection. Aram and his father shared breakfast, spoke in gentle tones, and savored the calm that had followed the storm. Yet, in the depth of their hearts, they knew the lessons of the nights gone by would remain with them forever, shaping their decisions, their courage, and their resilience. Then came a knock at the door. Aram's heart skipped a beat. He rose cautiously, eyes scanning the hallway, prepared for anything. Imran stepped beside him, calm and steady. They opened the door together, and standing there was a familiar neighbor, smiling warmly. "Good morning, Aram." "Good morning, Imran," the neighbor said. "I just wanted to check in, make sure you're safe." Aram looked at the neighbor, then at his father, and for the first time, he realized something profound. Courage, endurance, and wisdom were not just about facing intruders or physical threats. They were about building trust, understanding, and the ability to face the unknown with clarity and resilience. And in that moment, he knew the battles of the past nights had taught him more than survival, they had taught him life itself. "Thank you," Aram said softly, feeling a mixture of pride and humility. We're okay now." Imran smiled, placing a hand on his son's shoulder. "Yes, we are. And remember, Aram, courage is not just for crises like these. It's for every challenge, every obstacle, every moment when fear might try to take control. You've learned the hardest lessons already. Never forget them." The neighbor smiled, giving a small nod, and left. Aram closed the door, feeling the warmth of the morning sun on his face, the calm after the storm filling his chest with peace. The red lunchbox sat on the table, no longer a source of mockery, but a symbol of triumph, courage, and the lessons he had earned through endurance, observation, and decisive action. Aram looked at his father, eyes bright with understanding and quiet pride. "Dad, I think I'm ready now. For anything." Imran nodded, a proud smile crossing his face. "Yes, Aram. You are. Remember, the world will always test you. But with courage, wisdom, and patience, you will always stand tall." And so, as the city awoke outside, father and son shared a moment of quiet triumph. The intruders had retreated, the nights of fear and danger had passed, and Aram had grown in ways that laughter, mockery, and simple schoolyard teasing could never have imagined. The red lunchbox, once a symbol of ridicule, had become the emblem of courage, endurance, and triumph over adversity. Life would continue, challenges would arise, and the world would always test them, but Aram and his father knew that together, armed with courage, wisdom, and resilience, they could face anything. And in that moment, the boy who had once been laughed at for his lunchbox felt a power within himself he had never known, a power born of courage, love, and the lessons earned in the shadows. The red lunchbox sat on the table, gleaming in the morning light, a reminder that true courage is forged in trials, revealed in endurance, and celebrated not by others' approval, but by the strength within. And as father and son looked out at the world beyond their apartment, they knew one thing for certain: no matter what came next, they would face it together, with courage, wisdom, and hearts unbroken.